Gotta fix your hat, make sure it looks good.
Oh yeah, gotta
have the hat right. You know,
You
my
either
makeup
got
on.
the Swindle or the like Chad Morgan Taylor.
Yeah.
I'm like in between.
All right, we're live. What's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel, Monday night live. Man, we're happy to be here. We got a huge giveaway tonight. This is something I'm super excited about. This is first time we've given away something so nice and something that's not out there on the market yet. It's
First
coming.
time.
Yeah, coming in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, that's kind of the plan. And
live, local, and late breaking.
Right? Live, local, late breaking. So if you guys are on here right now, which I see you in the chat, so you're on here, share it. The more people we get in here, the better it's going to be. We're going to be doing 2 giveaways tonight. We're going to give away a $25 BaitWrX gift card, and we're also going to give away a Virtus Accura Rod. That's the new line that's going to be dropping here in a couple of weeks. So on the other end, we got Jordan. Cecil, what's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up? I'm doing good. Just chilling here at the Rod Factory.
Yeah, man, it looks good. Like we were saying before we went live, it's nice to see some ocean fish, I guess.
Yeah, there's some ocean fish. Yep.
Well, it's a familiar scene.
Yeah.
So we both got to tour the Rod Factory a couple months ago, and let me tell you, that's where it's at. American-made rod. You get to meet the people that do it. There was nothing better, and Jordan's going to talk more about it this evening. But it changed my opinion about
it was fun. It was fun. I'd never been through a rod facility, a rod manufacturing facility.
Most people don't even realize what all goes into the manufacturing of a rod, and so it's really cool when we get to have people here and get to kind of show them behind the scenes of what really goes all into it, and how rods are actually made, and why we're so proud to be making rods still here in the U.S.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first thing that struck me when I walked into the actual facility there where all the manufacturing's going on is there was a guy with a tape measure. He was back there just measuring out the material and cutting it to length. I mean, it's like from ground zero, building a rod, to when it comes out of the oven, I guess. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, it's all built right there in Arkansas, which is really cool.
Yeah, so a lot of quote unquote U.S. rod manufacturers, they'll import blanks from China or wherever overseas, and then they'll finish them in house. You know, they'll put guides on them, paint them, whatever. And to us, that's really not made in America. For us, you know, we're building all the blanks here in house with all the best materials that we possibly can, and so that's why we feel like we're able to build some of the best rods on the planet, because we're controlling everything that goes on here in house, and we're able to make the best of the best, what we think.
Well, you got a great pro staff too that backs you up and is open with you guys and says, "Hey, this is wrong with it. Let's fix this."
Absolutely.
And from whether it's a great quality or not so great quality, you can fix them pretty quick.
Exactly.
Very changes quickly. So,
you know, whether it's, you know, adding length to a rod or softening the power of a rod or any of that stuff, we can do it really quickly. Whereas when you're involved in that process with overseas, you know, it can take a whole year to get things done, because you're communicating with people at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning when it's dark out here, and they're working over there, and you have no idea how long it's going to take you to get that prototype back. Whereas here, we dream it up and immediately go back in the back and start making it a reality. And, you know, we can have a rod from start to finish in no time.
That's awesome, man. Before we get going, I want to give a shout out to Carson Hull. So this young man was in an accident 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess it was, and he lost part of his leg. He got bruised up, you know, some ribs and all that stuff. Avid fisherman. He fishes the Big Bass Bash with his grandfather. So just wanted to give him a shout out and say, hey man, we're pulling for you. Hope you heal up, and Godspeed, my brother. So
absolutely.
Another thing is, we asked, our little question was, who's going to win the Bassmaster Classic this year? And we got several people chiming in on it.
It's a good question.
Yeah, Darius says he's going with Gabe. Which, that's pretty
make
much
this-
That's a real long shot.
pretty
Isn't it?
bold, man.
Real long shot.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know why, but I just feel like it's Brandon Lester's time, man.
I said Brandon Lester too. That was my
I think
guess.
it's his time. That dude is sharp.
You got Mr. On him, Matt Robertson.
That's a good pick. He's, from Kentucky, I believe, so real close to Tennessee. So he probably is pretty familiar with Tennessee River.
Yeah. Neil says Cooper Gallant. And who else we got here? Somebody said Swindle.
And you got to think one of these days Swindle's going to win one.
It doesn't matter if it's a blue trophy or the classic. When it happens, it'll be the greatest story in history
For
the guy that's won $2 million without never winning a tournament.
right.
It's definitely
Yeah, I could see it being very comparable to like when Edwin won the classic.
mhm.
That was the monkey on Edwin's back for a decade or more.
Right.
He was so great but could never win a classic. And so I feel like
Look at Christie last
yeah,
year.
Christie. I mean, gosh, that guy, watching the final day of Bass Live this last year and them just keep on bringing up Grand Lake and Hartwell both from previous years, I was just like, man, this poor guy is just getting killed.
Well, I mean, that's what makes a story, unfortunately,
Sure.
right? Like it makes great for us to sit around around the coffee table and talk about it. But when it's you that they're talking about,
Yeah.
golly,
It's
that
not near as
gorilla just keeps closing in and in and in and just wrapping his fingers around your neck. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's weird. When I first posed this question, my mind went to Ott Defoe. And it's like he's not there anymore. It's some of those guys that they're with Major League Fishing now, and they're they've won classics in the past, they've won blue trophies, and
you wonder if they missed the classic. They got to, right? I mean, the classic's just it's its own mega deal. I know some of them are probably very, very happy to be fishing the MLF side of things, but the Bassmaster Classic, it's kind of the creme de la creme.
absolutely.
Thank you, Trey. Yeah, it's I don't know. I was surprised to see KVD retire, and my first intuition was he's going to come back and fish bass, but he said he's not going to be fishing any more tournaments.
I think he gives it 1 year, lets the dust settle, because he is part owner over there at MLF.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back to bass.
You don't think so?
No, I think he's going to start a TV show. Is what I think.
Okay.
I think he's going to start doing something similar to like what Zona does.
Yeah.
And mess around, do stuff like that, do a bunch of stuff with his partners at Retrieval Outdoors and Bass Pro. And I think that's what he's going to do. He's still going to be heavily involved in the industry and do a lot of stuff. But I think his regular tournament days, are going to be done.
It sure would nice to see him come back.
Oh, it'd be awesome. I just don't see with how much vested interest he has in MLF and his partners have vested interest in MLF. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I'm sure I can see him being like Davey Height, where
yes, exactly.
He takes the mic and just kind of rides off into the sunset.
Yeah, he could do really good at that, I think.
100%.
He's he's very good at expressing exactly, what he's thinking and feeling on the spot. He'd be really good at being a live commentator.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Yeah, Tyler Rivette, man, is on a tear.
He's on a tear, for sure. Louisiana boy.
Yep. I was amazed at how the first two tournaments were won live scoping.
Right, in Florida.
Yeah. On lakes that aren't known
right.
to be live scoping lakes. I mean, you think of Seminole, you think of Okeechobee. You're thinking power fishing, punching, grass, all that stuff. You're not thinking fishing 20 feet of water with a drop shot.
It's somebody that figured out something that's a little bit different. He had zero pressure on him.
Yep.
There was nobody doing what he was doing. That's just the difference of thinking outside the box. I mean, and being able to, that's how good these guys are with their electronics. Sure. I wish I could say I was half as good as they are.
Same.
I get frustrated when I throw 4 or 5 of them and they don't bite, and I just move on and go back to pitching down the bank.
Yeah, I hear you 100% on that. It's hard to have that discipline that they have to to see and to know like that one is gonna bite and I'm gonna make it bite.
Right.
Yeah.
And know that it's not a carp or a drum or
Right.
whatever out there.
I tell you what, Joey Cifuentes would have not been able to keep a cowboy hat on today out on the lake. 100% guarantee you that.
Well, you called me this morning. I couldn't
blowing.
believe it. You were on the way to the lake.
My little boat.
Last night here we had like 50-mile-an-hour winds last night.
That's what we had today. Yeah, I kept looking in the rearview mirror to make sure my boat was still hooked up. And
did you look in the rearview mirror or did you look in one of the side mirrors? Because I bet it was trying to.
It might have been scooting over a little bit.
Well, I talked to our buddy Doug, and he was on the lake today too. So I'm actually going to get to jump in the boat with him on Wednesday.
Are you really?
I'm excited.
Cool, man.
So,
that'll be fun.
He's known for the Dirty 30 down on Lake Wapapello,
really?
which is not a lake that typically produces that. And I got my fingers crossed that
you guys are going to have fun.
Either way, I'm going to get to learn a new lake.
So Doug's a river rat. Wapapello is a river run lake, and you've got the lake section, but then it turns into a legitimate river, small river.
I like that.
Tight turns, stumps everywhere. You come to the options where it looks like you can go 3 ways, but 2 of the ways are only a foot of water, and the other way is the channel. And it
doesn't look like the channel.
Sometimes it doesn't look like you're going the right way. And then
I'm gonna have to come up there.
It's fun, man. Doug's been running around that lake for a long time. You'll run back in some creeks too. It'll make you pucker up.
Really?
Yeah.
Pucker up, yeah. Hold on.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a good time.
I was on Truman one time with a buddy of mine, and it was both of our first time ever on Truman. This is probably 10 years ago or more. And I was puckered up like crazy because he was running some spots. I was like, man, I don't know if you should be running right here. Because there's just stumps and timber all over that lake.
Yeah, I drew a guy. I fished I guess it was the Bass Nation, the Federation Nation or something. This is probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago or something. And we had the state championship was on Truman, and I was fishing out of the back of the boat. Well, actually, it's one of those deals where each person gets 4 hours in the front of the boat, I think it was.
Nice, yeah.
But I drew a guy, and he was a local, and we went tearing across some flat on Truman way up I don't even remember what river. It's apparently there's a couple of the rivers that people only run so far, and then the
Palmy's one that people don't typically run too terribly far up because they tear all their crap up.
I'm thinking it was the Palmy, but we're running across this flat that's like 3 foot of water with stumps everywhere, and he had some trail marked through that. And this is, there might have been GPS. I think this is before GPS. I honestly do. So he had some landmark lined up. And we were just eating it across that flat going like, 55, 60 miles an hour. And there were stumps right there. Yeah. He never hit anything, but man, I was nervous. I was scared to death.
Oh, you just got to hope for the best that whole time. You just grit your teeth and hold on.
Oh, Tommy Biffle, if you can't see it, it ain't there. Just run.
Oh, absolutely. Can't see it, ain't there. Take her off and go.
They make more lower units every day.
Yeah. Trim them up.
I'm not that way. I like my stuff. I like to keep it intact, but
I'm with
those guys, they don't care.
Well, especially nowadays with the shortage of parts and stuff in the bass market, you shear off a lower unit or whatever, you might be sitting for a couple of months. I mean, Doug Chapin had that problem. Yeah. He hit that. I actually talked to him the other day and got the story on that. Man, he's lucky to be alive. Really,
he was lucky. Yeah,
he was on Pickwick
from his head.
Yes, I don't know if you guys saw that out there. Doug Chapin, looked that up on Facebook. It was sketchy. He was on Pickwick, and he was down below Kroger Island, and there's a secondary channel, and he was running the secondary channel. It's actually like a third channel. The secondary channel is even further away from this island, but there's one spot on that third channel that swings in close to the island, and apparently the water was down just a little bit lower than what he had thought it was. And he'd made that run, hundreds of times, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Well, he hit a cypress knee, and the motor was ripped off the transom and landed on the back deck.
Yeah. It folded that transom, or not the transom, the jack plate like an accordion, man.
Yeah. And you see they make those, what are they called? Those tethers?
The leash.
The leash.
Yeah. Precision sonar leash.
They make those for a reason. That's the reason right there.
Yeah, Doug said he'd definitely have one on his next boat and never have one again without one.
Did he total the boat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he totaled it.
Yeah, he's lucky to be alive, because I remember years ago there was a couple guys on Kentucky Lake, and one of the guys was a UPS carrier here in Cape Girardeau, and they were fishing a team tournament, and they were on the way back to weigh-in. They had a limit in the well, and they were cutting it kind of close, and they were going underneath the bridge. I think it was a 68 bridge down there by Ken Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of going through the middle part of the bridge, they kind of cut too close to the bank, and there was an old concrete pillar, like a brace that they had used when they were building the bridge, that they had not, demolished it. It was still underneath the water. I guess the water was low enough that they hit that.
They hit it,
and the motor came up and hit the guy in the head and killed him. So it happens. It was a tragic story. It happens
so easily. We're lucky here in the Ozarks. A lot of the lakes we have don't have a lot of those stumps and timber like that, so you can just get out, get in the channel, and run. But some of these lakes down south, you can't get away with that.
Seems like every lake in Southern Illinois and our part of the world, there's a stump or a flat or something that you're gonna. I mean, even the little local lakes that we fish that are 10 horsepower restricted. I remember telling on the old game warden, old Green Jeans. He was out checking guys, and he was running back in a creek, and I saw where he was running. I was like, it's not deep enough to run even our little boats.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, I just hear, well, wow! And he kicked that motor up. He center punched a stump back there. It's like, oh, okay. I talked to him at the ramp, and he's like, oh, yeah, I just missed it. I'm like, you hit her square on, bud.
You hit her straight on.
Yeah.
So speaking of old Green Jeans, for all my Missouri fishermen and women, we got one more day of fishing in Missouri, and then your license expires.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Oh, yeah, I got my auto renew last week.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm good.
So,
all right. So we got over 100.
I get the auto renew.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. I'll tell you a story here in a second.
We better not.
Yeah, we better not.
We better wait till we're off air on that one.
I'll tell you backstage after the stream.
Sounds good.
So we've got over 100 people in here. This is awesome. A lot of people are showing up, and just a reminder, we are going to be giving away a $25 BaitWrX gift card and also a Virtus Jewel rod. And the way the giveaway works, there's a bunch of new people in here. Sometime during the stream, we're going to make a reference to Sasquatch. So whenever you hear that reference, guess a number between 1 and 200, and whoever guesses the number is going to win the prize. And we have 2 prizes. So the first number is going to be for the BaitWrX gift card. The second number is going to be for the rod, and you can't win them both. We're going to keep this, keep it even. I don't want somebody cleaning in house, although the possibility of that happening is probably slim to none, but just want to make that announcement up front. So sometime during the stream, we'll make a reference to Sasquatch, guess a number between 1 and 200, and you're going to get some fine prizes. Yeah, a lot of people are saying G-Man. I'd love to see G-Man.
Oh, sure.
Classic. G-Man just, I love when he comes up on stage. It's like a little comedy show every way in.
That year at Hartwell, when he came up on stage and was talking about the jackhammer, and was joking around about, I pay $17 for these just like every one of y'all do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, I think he puts it on real thick.
That's one of the best plugs, though, that jackhammer could have got.
Ever could have gotten.
So, I mean, you don't just
somebody's sponsored by a bunch of different companies, and one of them is not Z-Man,
right?
But yet they're buying that Z-Man product. Exactly. That's an endorsement right there, and
that's a testament to the product.
Sure.
Well, that was one of the big things that took off. Jewel Bait Company was back in the early 2000s. Kelly Power up on Table Rock was dominating every tournament on a 5/8 ounce football jig on Table Rock. And he got up on the weigh-in stage it was either a Central Pro-Am or something like that, and told everybody that if you're not fishing a jewel jig, you're not catching all the fish you can catch, and I'm just going to keep kicking your tails. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to Jewel Bait Company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Just somebody that's
not sponsored by us.
Yes.
Nothing. Just using the product and
hot. Like winning, kicking everybody's tail.
winning everything.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Somebody said they just bought that skipping jig or skipping rod. Where's that at?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Keith.
Yeah, he said it got me a Jewel Virtus rod for skipping small jigs around docks.
Heck yeah.
There's another one down here. Erwin says, getting in late. What are the Jewel blanks made of?
So the blanks are our proprietary blend of textiles, the highest modulus graphite and carbon fiber materials that we can get. Best materials we can possibly use and possibly find on the planet. It's what we're putting in our Red Diamond series, and why we think it's one of the best rods on the planet. And we use Fuji reel seats and Fuji guides, and then in our Red Diamond series we offer it in both cork and wind grip as well, so you can kind of pick your option.
Let's talk a little bit about rod building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dive into that. So the different actions and weights of the rod, how is that? I know when I was there, there were the guy that was doing it was stacking, multiple layers of textile or graphite.
Yes.
So kind of talk about how that goes into the actions and stuff of the rods.
Yeah. So all of our textiles, they come in on these big rolls. I mean, really big rolls. And so we put them on this rolling table and we roll out and we cut and measure exactly what we need for whatever rod we're going to build. And then they're all layered specifically for however the action of the rod's going to be and what we want the weight of the rod to be and everything. And then those are then rolled onto our mandrels, which are mandrels, they're steel rods. And that's kind of where your action and everything comes from. And then take it and put it in our oven, and they're cured precisely in our oven, and then out you come with a rod and pull the mandrel out, and then we move through the process with the rod blank and start adding guides and everything else.
About how long does it take to go from start to finish on a rod?
About 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I want to finagle it there. It just kind of depends on the rod. Some rods like a swim bait rod that's got double footed guides all up and down it. That's going to take longer than a rod that's got single foot guides.
Yep. That makes sense.
It's more detail. And that's usually why those rods are a little more on the higher end as well too.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was the Virtus rod facility where isn't it a climate controlled deal? Like it has to be a certain temperature.
Absolutely. Everything's got to be climate controlled.
Well, when we were down there, like the week or two before, when we had those record cold temps,
yes,
you guys had to close down for like the weekend because it was too cold to work.
It was too cold. Yep.
So
yeah, we got to keep all the temperatures and everything controlled as best we can to make sure every blank, every product we produce comes out the best quality possible. And it's just like even in the oven, everything's so very specific. It's not like you're baking in your oven at home, 350 degrees for 30 minutes. No, there's a lot more that goes into it than that because that way that rod has to bake. You can't have the tip of the rod blazing hot because there's not a whole lot of material up there at the tip. So all that stuff's taken into account when you're baking these rods. And any wrong, mistake can result in an inferior product or something that's going to be brittle and break, or something that's not going to be very sensitive.
So Larry wants to know, where can you buy one of these rods?
Yeah, as always, you can buy them at one of our Virtus Jewel dealers. But the best place to buy them is just go to jewelbait.com, and you can go to the Virtus Rod page and We have all of our models of rods there. And even when we get ready to launch this new series of rods here in the next couple of weeks, the first place they'll be is on our Jewel website.
Okay. Well, since you brought that up, well, actually, let's go in here and look at some of these rod actions. Somebody was asking, what is a good rod for fishing a spinnerbait?
For a spinnerbait, so we have. It all depends on the person. So this is how I think of rods. Every person's different. So the rod that you like for a spinnerbait may be different than what I like for a spinnerbait, depending on how big you are, the way you like to fish a spinnerbait, all those different details. So we try to build the best rod that we think for that specific technique. So we've got a 6'9" medium heavy Jolt spinnerbait rod that we all really like. It's got a real short handle. It's got good enough length on the end that you can make really good roll casts and everything. And so that's what most of us want. But if you're up north and you're bombing a spinnerbait and you're reeling that in as fast as you can, maybe our 7.2 swim jig rod might be better for you for that application. I even know some guys here on Bull that are burning a War Eagle, Screaming Eagle that prefer our swim jig rod because they can really bomb that thing on bluff walls, and then they can reel that spinnerbait in as fast as they possibly can. But I always try to point people towards our 6'9" Jolt. I think it's a real good starter spinnerbait rod. But also, if you want a good, combo rod, our finesse 610 finesse jig rod is a really good finesse jig rod, but it's also a good spinnerbait rod.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been throwing the that swim jig rod, the 7.2.
Yep, medium heavy.
Yeah, and man, I love that thing, and it works.
Fantastic rod.
It works for it works great for an actual swim jig. It works great for a chatterbait, and it works great for a spinnerbait. And you can also throw, a 3/8 ounce jig. You can flip around Texas rig stuff, and that's kind of to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it says it's a swim jig rod doesn't mean you can't use it for a lot of things. And I personally, I like that 7 foot to 7.3. That rod length is so multi-purpose on just about any action. You can do so much with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just like for me, for the lakes that I fish and what I do, our 7.6 flip pitch for me is just a little bit too long of a rod for me for my flipping and pitching purposes around here. So I opt for our 7.3 Ranger is my go-to rod while I'm flipping and pitching. Now, if I get some really thick, heavy cover and I want that extra 3 inches for more leverage, I can go with the flip pitch. But for me, based on the height that I am and the way that I like to fish and the lakes that I fish, that 7.3 Ranger is a really good rod for me. But every person's different and wants a rod for a different purpose. If you're fishing and flipping and pitching a lot around cypress trees and you're worried about your rod getting hung up in cypress trees, our 6'10" Stunner or 7-foot Titan is probably more what you're looking for.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it, Jordan, it doesn't dictate on your height, right? It just dictates what you're comfortable fishing with.
For sure, yeah.
Some guys like a longer rod. You look at Brian Thrift out there, and I don't think Brian Thrift's a very, very long guy.
No.
But he's out there flipping a 7.8 rod. It's like, good God, that thing's twice as long as you are, it seems like. And when I'm 6'2", Gabe's 6'2", 6'3", and I think we prefer for flipping and pitching, we prefer that 7.2 to 7.4 length.
Yep.
It's just easier to control. You're a little more accurate with it. And it's amazing how much that just little bit of length makes a difference. And what I like about the Jewel rods is the handle length.
Yeah.
You don't have one that's going to be catching your pocket on your hoodie in the fall and the spring. It's not going to hit you in the belly. You can still maneuver it. You can still get in, make good tight roll casts with them. So,
well, that's the thing. We're all fishermen here. So when we go into designing a rod, we're taking everything into account that what a fisherman's going to think about. If we make this rod handle, this long, it's going to be uncomfortable for your average angler to fish with all day long, even us. And so it's like, why build a rod that the handle is great big. Just like I was talking about that Jolt spinnerbait rod. All of us really like to fish a spinnerbait up shallow around brush here in the springtime. And to do that, you've got to really get that spinnerbait back in the tight places, and you're doing a lot of roll casting. And so having that real short butt section on that Jolt rod is really phenomenal to be able to make those casts.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier.
Same with a jerkbait rod.
Yes.
You want a small, you don't want a lot sticking behind the reel when you're jerking.
And a lot of times what I found with a jerkbait rod, you don't want a lot sticking out in front of the handle either.
No.
As I've gotten in different boats, and it's better to have that rod that I can work almost straight up and down versus pulling it off to the side.
Well, if you're having to pull it off to the side, or if every time you're jerking it, you're smacking the top of the water, you're kind of defeating the whole entire purpose of fishing a jerkbait anyways. It's not acting natural. It's not acting right. And then plus with hitting the water, you're probably spooking a lot of the fish that are there. So having a rod that's the business end of the rod, that's the right length, but also for the butt section to be the right length, that it's not catching in your shirt, or most of the time when we're fishing a jerkbait, we've all got rain suits on and what hoodies or whatever. It's not catching.
There's nothing. I had it happen yesterday. There's nothing worse than jerking one or flipping something up, and your handle goes between your
or it gets caught in your pocket,
and then all of a sudden it never fails. I always get a bite right then.
It's always the most uncomfortable place to be, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a 6'8" jerkbait rod. I've got a 7 foot, and I've got a 7'2". Actually, the 7 foot and the 7'2" are crankbait rods, but I've been using them for the jerkbaits. But I love that 6'8", 6'10" length for a jerkbait. It's so finessey, and it's got the right, action. Most of the time we're jerk baiting in cold water, so the fish aren't pulling super, super hard. If you just keep them tight, keep a bow in your rod, and just kind of keep your drag set perfect, you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about horsing them out. But it's so easy fishing that little bit shorter rod. It doesn't wear you out. You can control your twitches. You're more accurate with your cadence, and that's a key a lot of times with the jerkbait. If you've got a really big rod, you're moving too much bait. That little shorter rod action, that little shorter rod, you do little short finessey twitches, and and the main thing is it's light, and you can fish with it all day long, and it doesn't wear you out. Yeah,
well, that's the big thing. So I go up north every summer smallmouth fishing with a group of guys from here to Minnesota, and one of the things that blew a lot of them away, they were using other rods on the market. I'm not saying anything bad about other rods that are out there, but their rods were significantly heavier, and the butt sections were even longer. And so it was prime jerkbait time when we were up there, and they were just feeding on jerkbait as fast as you could rip that thing. And a lot of them were struggling fishing a jerkbait all day because they were having fatigue. Their forearms were hurt, burning, and shoulders were bothering them and everything. And it was because they were using a rod that was either too heavy or a rod that the handle length was too much for them, and it was just causing them a lot of trouble. Whereas, for 7 straight days, I fished one rod, the Red Diamond jerkbait rod, and by the end of the trip, I had zero fatigue at all. It just felt like an extension of my arm.
Yeah, that's key. I mean, having a rod that is working for you, you're not working the rod, so to speak. I mean, I know you're doing your thing, but your rod is giving you as much back as you're giving it. I always think of like A-rig fishing. If you're A-rig fishing or flipping and pitching like you're talking about with a rod that's not set up the best for that technique, it's a long day. You're going to be sore.
Long day.
Yeah, but if your stuff's set up right,
almost any technique though. I would say every technique. If you have the wrong rod, the wrong setup, whether it's a spinnerbait, I was thinking like frog fishing. You got the wrong frog rod, or you got the wrong punching rod, or you got the wrong chatterbait rod. Doesn't matter what it is, you're gonna fight it all day. Whether it's not making accurate casts to your target, or if it's fighting the rod because of weight, length, butt section. There's a whole host of things that go into it, not just length of rod or weight of rod.
Right, exactly. And that's a big reason why we name all of our rods technique specific, is to help you as the angler to be able to pick up that rod and see, okay, finesse jig rod. Okay, this is going to be a good rod for fishing a finesse jig. I'm not going to be fighting this all day long if I'm trying to fish a 5/16 or 7/16 finesse jig. I'm going to have exactly the tool that I need. And while they are labeled technique specific, that's not the only technique, as we discussed earlier, that rod might be good for.
Yeah, is that something you would throw? Could you throw like a 1/4 ounce shaky head on that finesse jig rod too? Okay.
Absolutely. Eric Prey, who's the guide up here at Table Rock, he hates throwing a shaky head on a spinning rod. He hates it.
Really?
He hates it. I don't know why that's the case, but it is. But he loves taking our finesse jig rod and a 1/4 ounce shaky head, and he will just kick people's tails in on Table Rock with it.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten to where I'm throwing a shaky head on a baitcaster a lot more. I used to throw it specifically on spinning gear.
We almost had to with the 16th ounce shaky head that you threw.
It was an 1/8 ounce. I never went lighter than an 1/8 ounce. Now, when I do throw an 1/8 ounce,
you go back.
I go back.
Yeah, you almost
go back.
3/16 is kind of that.
At least it wasn't like a 3/32 or something like that.
No, not a crappie jig. But I like that. I like that braid 8-pound fluoro. It makes me feel like I'm more finessey when I'm throwing with a spinning rod. But I like the control of a baitcaster. I think you get a lot better control with a baitcaster. You hook even on 12-pound test, which is what I throw a shaky head on now on the baitcaster. But you just have more control for whatever reason. That's just
for sure.
I think it's because we're in the southern Midwest, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We're not up north. If you had a spinning rod in your hand, if you had 8 spinning rods on the deck and 2 baitcasters, you'd probably feel just the opposite, where you'd have more control with the spinning rod.
I get a better hook set with a spinning rod for sure.
You think so?
Oh yeah, because I go, I reel left-handed with the spinning reel, and I reel right-handed with the baitcaster. Mm-hmm. So my hook set is with my right hand instead of my left hand, and I go straight up and I jack them. I mean, my hook set's a lot better that way.
Yeah, and you're down.
We know which way my hook set's really good at, and it's not that way. I'm always out of position with a spinning rod. So,
yeah, spinning rods can be one of those things that if you're not used to it, that can just make you feel so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you get that free fall that you don't get with a baitcaster. You leave that bell open, and that bait is falling straight down, like with a Demiki rig or a drop shot. That straight fall can make a big difference.
It can make all the difference in the world. Even on a shaky head, I think it can make the difference with how that shaky head's falling. On bull earlier this summer, I was really catching good out of brush piles on a 1/4 ounce shaky head, and to me, it was really how that almost every one of them was on the fall.
Okay,
and it was how that thing would fall on the spinning rod, how it would just fall so naturally and so fluently through the brush pile that. I was still using, I was using 15-pound braid to a 12-pound leader. So my line size would be the same as what I'd be using on a baitcaster, but just the free fall that spinning reel would offer for that shaky head, I think got me bites when I wouldn't have otherwise.
I agree with that. I know I've seen that happen a bunch of times. A lot of times that 8-pound test and that 1/8 ounce jig head, it really glides. Like when you're pulling it up it glides up off the bottom, where if you've got a 1/4 ounce, it wants to kind of stay down. And sometimes they want something stirring up the bottom. Absolutely. Sometimes they want something just gliding, and you can, you got to kind of experiment with that. I'll take, when I'm fishing that shaky head with the baitcaster, I'm throwing 12-pound fluoro, and I'll make a cast. And right when my bait hits the water, I'm lowering my rod to the water. As soon as my bait makes contact, I'm going straight up and giving it a bunch of slack, and then I'm coming back down. So that thing's dropping 10 or 12 feet on a somewhat free spool, so to speak.
Right.
Which works good around here. Now, if you're fishing 20, 30 foot deep, you got to do that, and then you got to really feed off the line.
Yeah, really feed it.
And I don't think it's as good as a spinning rod, but it's a lot better than just letting it pendulum back towards the boat.
For sure.
It's kind of a compromise, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a matter of what you're most comfortable with.
Keith says, can anyone come in for a tour of the Mid-American rods?
We're not really set up to where we do tours per se. We had y'all in specifically kind of for the show and everything, but we typically don't do tours to the outside just because we have a lot of secrets that we have to keep in-house, the proprietary blends of textiles and materials and things like that we just try to keep in-house.
Yeah, I shot a bunch of video. I was in there, but they confiscated it and burned it on the way out. So sorry.
We gave you the warning, fair warning before you came in.
Right. I knew. I had it hidden underneath my hoodie too, and they didn't get my metal detector.
They didn't get my hat cam though, so we got a little bit of footage.
Got a little bit.
Yeah, we'll drop that at a later date. Chris says, what is Jordan's opinion on the best chatterbait blank, fiberglass, graphite, or blend?
Oh, great question. So for me, it's graphite. I am not a fan of fiberglass or a composite blend. To me, the reason I like graphite is I want to feel that chatterbait thumping. I want to feel it every thump that thing makes, because when a fish comes up and just mouths that thing, I want to know they have it. I want to have the most sensitive rod I possibly can have that can feel it. Now, from that standpoint of having a really sensitive rod, you kind of have to completely reteach yourself on your hook set and everything. Because whereas if you're used to using a fiberglass or a composite rod, you can really jack them on one of those and not have to worry about pulling or anything like that. Because you're feeling the bite much later than you are on a real sensitive rod. On a real sensitive rod, like our 7.2 swim jig rod, is what I use most of the time for throwing a chatterbait. And because it's so sensitive, I have to give them just that little bit of time. When I start feeling that pressure right on the tip of my rod, then that's when I lean into them. Not immediately when I feel the bite. Because I feel like if I do that, then I just make the blade open up of that chatterbait, and it makes that fish's mouth open up, and I have a less likelihood of hooking them. But for me, there's so many finicky bites on a chatterbait that if I can feel just that fish breathing on it, then to me that gives me a better chance of getting that fish in the boat and having a chance to maybe catch a check.
I agree with you. I'm 100% graphite on that for the same reasons that you mentioned, the sensitivity. And I'll tell you my story about the Red Diamonds swim jig rod. That's when I got that thing. It's been almost a year ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I tied a swim jig. I love fishing the swim jig around here in Southern Illinois. Well, we live in Missouri, but right across the river, Southern Illinois,
right across
a lot of those lakes, a lot of grass. So swim jig is a big player over there, and I throw it quite a bit. I missed probably the first 5 or 6 bites that I got on a swim jig with that Virtus Red Diamond, and I cut it off.
Yeah,
because I couldn't. It was so sensitive; it was throwing me off, and I
had to reteach yourself.
I had to reteach myself, so I threw it with my other rod for a while, and then I tied it back on, and you really do. You have to slow down because you're feeling it. I don't know how to explain it. The way I can explain it is I'm feeling grass a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That you feel, and I was telling Jonathan this the other day. I'm feeling like if you hit a hard kind of stalk of grass, it's like a tick. You feel like a little tick instead of with my old swim jig rod. It kind of just got a little heavy, kind of mush. You didn't feel it now. You still feel the mush in the mush grass with the Red Diamond, but you're feeling a lot of extra stuff that I'd never felt before, and it's taken me. It takes me a while to get used to it. I hadn't really fished a swim jig much over the winter, and I got a video coming out Wednesday with the swim jig where I caught some fish on it.
Nice.
And I was throwing that Red Diamond, and I missed 2 or 3 fish on it because I pulled it away from them. It's so
easy to do. So the rod that really helped me to reteach myself was our wart crawler in the Red Diamond. I love throwing a wigglewort. Everybody in this area does. But I was pulling so many wiggleworts out of so many fish's mouths, it wasn't even funny because I was feeling stuff I never felt before. I was feeling them bite way sooner than I've ever felt them bite before because the rod was so much more sensitive. So I was constantly pulling the bait away from them. But once you get over that and really get used to that extra sensitivity, then it makes you a better angler because you're feeling things you've never felt before. Even like with a jig, being able to feel the bottom is such a huge and important thing. You know, I can count every single rock on the bottom of any lake with a jig with one of our rods and not miss a single rock that's on the bottom. And I can tell if I'm hitting pea gravel, and it changes to chunk rock. I mean, the rod's going to give that feedback so instantly that I can tell, because I've been on banks before. I'm sure y'all have been too. That it's a pea gravel. It looks like a pea gravel bank looking at the bank, but in 8 to 10 foot of water, it turns into chunk rock, and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm catching them on pea gravel," when you're patterning them. When the case really is, you're catching them on chunk rock. And so, being able to have a rod where you can feel all that stuff is truly a game changer.
Right.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. That's yeah, and you put a tungsten weight on one of those red diamonds.
Oh gosh,
drag it around. It's ridiculous.
It is insane.
Here's a question.
I love this question because I had the same question, and I think it was Russell that answered it so eloquently about the cork or wind grips or EVA and guides. Because I think didn't the story go that Greg doesn't believe in guides on his rods?
That's the story. Greg says you only need the first one and the tip. Is all you need. You don't need anything in between. It's just eye candy.
and then the whole cork versus EVA versus wind.
Let me grab a rod here real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
It's easier to show the rod.
Sure.
But you got to think, JT, how much of your hand is actually on what you're talking about? I think the new rods are the EVA, though, correct?
Yeah, new rods are EVA. I'll show one of those here in just a second. So this is one of our red diamond rods. And so
let me put you on solo here.
Yeah.
Put you on full screen. There we go.
And when you're looking at our reel seat here, so for me and most anglers, 90% of the time where you're grabbing on a rod is right here. And you're palming that reel that you have right here. So your hand's not even on the cork or the wind grip anyways, 99% of the time when you're fishing. It's actually on the reel seat. And you can see on our reel seats that the blanks are exposed in the reel seat to offer more sensitivity and everything like that. But the wind grips and the cork, there's really no difference at all in the sensitivity that you're going to feel in the rod.
Hold that up again so you can see where that blank, like roll it towards us. There you go. Yeah. So you can see that's where your finger naturally goes, right above that horn or the grip there.
Yep.
And you've got a direct line. So that's what we were talking about. It's
typically
really what
pinky,
feels comfortable.
Your pinky is what is touching the
cork,
the cork or whatever the handle is material is made out of. So, unless your pinky is just super sensitive.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to tell anything. But the nice thing, I found myself going to more wind grips than cork, just because the fact of, say you're fishing on a day when it's raining, you're constantly, wiping water off that cork grip, and you're trying to get a better grip going. But with that wind grip, it just gets tackier and tackier. And since there's no sensitivity difference, just the comfort level of wind grip is really fantastic. But there's still some rods that I still just like having a cork, just because I fished with cork my whole life, and
absolutely,
and that's why I want to keep fishing with.
Well, for me with cork, frog fishing, punching, anything that's slimy, you talk about that. After a little bit of the oils off your hands, the sweat, whatever it is, gets on there, and it starts raining, or you're fishing braid and it's running down your hand. All of a sudden, that rod gets real slick,
real quick.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the worst when you set one on 65-pound braid and a mat. And
for sure. And I tell you, I found a real big bonus this winter. So me and my cousin fished a tournament. When we took off, it was snowing, and I think the warmest it got that day was like 28 degrees, and on bull. And I had 2 rods set up for spinnerbait, slow rolling a spinnerbait, and I kept finding myself reaching more and more towards that wind grip because it was warmer. It held the heat so much better. So my hand stayed warmer fishing because it held my body heat in that wind grip so much better than the cork. The cork, it can't hold any of your body heat. And so I found myself more and more just reaching for that wind grip one, even if it wasn't the right colored spinnerbait. I didn't care.
That's like a hardwood floor versus carpet or something.
Right.
In the wintertime when barefooted.
I tell you what, the worst is, what you're talking about, that when it's cold and raining and you got to go pick up a different reel, even if it's got a wind grip on it, then that reel's like ice.
Yeah, ice, man.
We need to put like a little heater inside those plates, the palm plate on a reel.
We'll get to work on that right away.
Like Corrado DC with a little heater in the chip.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Dax has a question here. Does Jewel roll their own blanks?
We roll our own blanks. We do it all here in the house.
Everything's in house right there in Arkansas.
Yep.
All right, here's a question. Ozark Kayak Bass Fishing says, so what is the difference between the red and the blue diamond series?
Great question. And kind of it's going to be an answer to red, blue, and the new series as well. Just kind of tie all three together. So the red diamond series is made from our GFR 40 blank. So that's just a way for us to know what we're talking about. It's a blending of carbon fiber and graphite textiles that make up that rod. And then the blue diamond is a GFR 30. Bunch of fancy rod talk. So basically what it means is, think of it as cars. So your blue diamond rod is your Corvette. I mean, fine sports car that really gets the job done. And for most people, they're like, dang, that is a super nice car. That's nicer than, anything I'll ever have in my life. Well, the red diamond becomes that Ferrari. It takes everything that's good in the blue diamond and it takes it all to a whole nother level. We have a lot of guys that compare our red diamond. It's at a $299 price point, and a lot of people compare it to $500 and $600 rods because it's that premium, that sensitive, and that well designed. So your red's going to be a little bit lighter than the blue diamond. It's going to have a little bit more sensitivity. It's going to have a few different things component wise as far as guides. But other than that, they're both really fantastic rods. But that's kind of where you get your price difference going there.
Okay.
And then it'd be the same thing with our Accura series. When you're comparing it to the blue diamond would be just a step up then from our Accura series.
Right. But having said that though, all three of these rods are going to be super sensitive.
Yes.
Super well balanced.
So when I picked up the blue diamonds for the first time, I thought it was the most sensitive rod I've ever held in my hands.
Right.
Ever. I thought there's nothing that could beat this. And then I picked up a red diamond and I was like, oh, there is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea. I mean, compared to every other rod I'd ever fished, a blue was far more sensitive.
I think there's a time and place for everything though, right? I mean, depending on your style, if you like fishing a spinnerbait and you don't want to feel necessarily everything and pull it away from them, maybe that blue diamond is where your home
or
is.
The Accura.
Or the Accura series.
Yeah.
Accura series.
I'll give you the perfect example. So in our blue diamond, it's called the blue diamond crankbait. It's just like our red diamond wart crawler. But I've found here lately that a lot of guys are gravitating a lot more towards the blue diamond crankbait because they can't make the adjustment to the high level of sensitivity of the red diamond. And so for them, it's easier to adjust to that blue diamond because it's a little bit more similar to what they've been fishing before. It's still more sensitive than what they've previously been fishing, but not so much to the extent like the red diamond is. And so they can get away with that blue diamond crankbait a little bit easier.
I had a fish last week. I told you I was throwing that swim jig, and I hadn't fished a swim jig in probably 4 or 5 months, but I was throwing it on the red diamond swim jig rod, and I was coming down the side of this laydown. Both sitting in probably 14, and this laydown's coming down off the bank out to about the front of the boat. So it's about a 45-degree angle of that laydown. And so I throw up at the base of it, and I'm working that swim jig. I'm fishing. I'm kind of doing a little bit of Alabama shake. I'm trying to keep it high.
Alabama shimmy.
Yeah. But I'm also letting it kind of go down along the side of the trunk too. And it gets down about halfway to the boat. And man, I felt like the rod jumped out of my hand. That fish, the sensitivity, I mean, the thump of it it was so, and I had to fish. I set too early because when you feel that, you can't. It's like a gunshot or something.
Your only instinct is to set the hook.
It makes you flinch, but it's just I don't know, man. It's a pretty dang good rod. It's pretty dang sensitive, but you do have to learn how to fish it. And like JB was saying, that's some of those moving baits. You might be better off to go to a blue diamond, just so you can let it load up a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to adjust to that much sensitivity.
It is,
but something that you're dragging on the bottom, you need all the sensitivity you can get. I mean, to count those blades of grass, count the rocks, all that stuff.
I want to feel when I'm dragging something. I want to feel them breathing on it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I want to feel them looking at it, have that sixth sense, and then know when they eat it. So
and know exactly when.
Sometimes that bite. I mean, you fish a less sensitive rod. Sometimes that bite is. Oh, there's one. You had no idea he was there, right?
Absolutely.
You get a sensitive rod, and you knew he was there.
There's so many. I've found the more and more that I'm fishing these rods, how many big fish I was missing the bite on. Because all of us, we think of big fish, it's just going to tattoo the bait. Typically, it's those smaller fish that are the ones that are hitting it hard. I'm not saying a big one won't hit a bait hard, because they will in the right situation. I've caught some fish on a jig that have just annihilated it. But a lot of those big fish, you just hardly feel them. And you just rear back and set that hook, and it's a 5-6 pounder.
Yeah.
And those are bites that you can easily miss with a less sensitive rod.
Yeah, usually when one tattoos mine, I end up tattooing him too, and he comes flying past you.
He's about 10 inches long.
Yeah.
Well, those big fish are just real efficient feeders. They know exactly how much water
they just go in and just
through their gills.
Suck it in.
They're usually, when you feel them, they're spitting it out. That tick that you feel.
Yep.
You're spitting them out. So TB Brock says, what kind of jerkbait rods do you have in the Virtus line?
So we've got two. We've got a 6/8 stickbait rod in the Blue Diamond series and a 6/8 jerkbait rod in the Red Diamond series. And again, in the Red Diamond, it's offered in Win and in cork as well. I personally prefer the Win in it, but just with jerking and jerkbait all day, I just think the Win's so comfortable. But both rods are phenomenal. If you want a jerkbait rod where you can feel the fish breathe on the jerkbait, then the Red Diamond jerkbait rod is the rod for you. In fact, Wired to Fish, they had an article that came out just before Christmas, and they were going through testing all the jerkbait rods out on the market and named our Red Diamond jerkbait rod the #1 jerkbait rod on the market.
Thanks, Colby.
My man Colby. Great dude.
The Diamond Ranger. Is that a 7-footer?
The Red Diamond Ranger, it's a 7.3. I actually got one sitting right here next to me, rigged up with a flipping jig on it. Let's see here.
So that's something you're flipping with. What else are you going to be doing with that?
So I do a lot. It's probably the rod I use more than any other rod in the entire lineup. It's my favorite rod. So I can flip and pitch a big jig with it. I can fish a big worm. It's why I'm fishing a Texas rig worm and brush piles and different things like that. I can throw a Mad Draft on it. The one with the treble hook, of course. If you're going to throw the Mad Draft weedless, I would recommend going like our flip pitch or even our 7.7 Buzz Frog rod. But that 7.3 Ranger is one of the most versatile rods in our entire lineup. And you can even fish a jig on, fish a football jig on it too if you want to. I think our football jig's a little bit more well designed for that. But I know a lot of guys that they use the Ranger for a football jig rod as well. But it's a super versatile rod, and man, it's fun to fish.
Just got off the phone with M Squared, Mike Marfa. We're heading to Lake of the Ozarks Thursday, hopefully Thursday morning. If not,
OMTT.
Yeah, I think we're borderline jumping into that, but we're definitely doing the anglers in action. So
nice.
I think we're leaning towards the OMTT though. I mean, we might as well, fish on back to back.
If you win you a couple rods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you guys are with
OMTT, we sponsor the OMTT. So first place team wins 2 Virtus Accura Red Diamond rods.
Nice.
Yeah.
Boy,
Here's a guy
sweetens
that
up the package.
knows his way around a couple.
Oh, he doesn't know nothing.
Oh, I beg to differ. I spent a couple hours in the boat with him.
He's out there looking for the party, the
He's
big party
always
all the
looking
time.
for
Man,
the party.
Dell's the man. He is an electronics genius, and he is a genius with a spinning rod in his hand.
If you guys are looking for a fun, just an absolute ball on bull shoals and a great lesson in electronics, look up Del Cove and bull shoals fishing.
Yeah. So here's how. I don't know. We're gonna continue to brag on Dell. He's gonna get a big head, but so here's how good
He's
Dell
already
is.
got a big head.
Here's how good Dell is. Yeah, he's tall too. He's like his head's like way up in the air too.
Well, it's funny. So 6'3", 6'2", right? And
Yeah.
Dell
I'm
is
6'2". I'm only 6'2".
okay. Dell is right here looking over our shoulders in the boat.
Yeah,
We're up on the front deck, and he's like, "Hey guys, how you doing?"
He's like 6'12". Yeah,
He's looking over y'all at the live scope.
Yeah. So we jumped in the boat with him not too long ago, and there's a video out there if you haven't seen it. But he's got a Demiki rig hanging over the side, and he's just talking to us. And next thing you know, he sets and he's catching the fish, and he just laughs and giggles and looks at it, throws it in the water. And then we're down there, me and Jonathan and I are really focused, and Dell just kind of flips his Demiki rig off and he threads it down and
then he's like, hey, they're going right there.
Yeah, he's just counting it down with his fingers. He stops the reel, and next thing you know, he's moving it and boom, he loads up again. And we're just trying to get a bite. And he's just kind of,
you've got to learn that bite big time. It's totally different when you're fishing out there that deep.
Well, and I don't think if I had some of my equipment versus fishing with the jewel rods, I don't think I would have felt half those fish.
Well, you're fishing 90 feet deep.
Yeah, 90 feet deep that's a lot of line. There's a lot of reels, but I don't have that much line on a reel.
Even just think a 3/4 ounce football jig. You can fish a 3/4 ounce football jig all the way down. I have to 50 foot of water. I mean, that's a lot of line out there. And then feeling a mush bite probably is what a jig bite's going to feel like down there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having a sensitive rod is super important.
I think Keith had a question up here about incorporating glass. You guys, none of your cranking rods have glass, correct?
No, none of them have any glass.
And no plans to have glass.
No
either.
plans. No.
Okay.
So that was quick and short answer there.
No, we like maximum sensitivity.
Agree.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was. I tried the glass rod for the Chatterbait, going back to that, and it was it just wasn't for me. I missed fish, and I tell you what, it wasn't necessarily the sensitivity was a big part of it. It was not being able to control the fish.
Right. Yeah.
Gabe knows I swing them. I hit them hard with 20-pound test, and I put them in the boat. I don't like to talk to them in the water. I like to talk to them in the carpet. So
exactly, and that's another thing. If you're gonna do something like that with a composite or a fiberglass rod, you got to go really heavy duty on your action. That's why a lot of these guys are using heavy or extra heavy action glass rods to make up for what's going on.
So let's talk a little bit about the new line that's coming out here in the next couple months or a couple weeks, actually.
So March 13th is when we're going to come out with it, somewhere around noon, lunchtime-ish. Hadn't really set for sure on that, but it's coming out March 13th. I believe that's a Monday. So Accura series. Let's see here if I can grab this rod here, because nothing better than getting to look at new rods. So this is our Accura series.
Let me put you on solo. There we go. Oh yeah, it's nice. So talk a little bit about that. So you got the EVA grips on it.
So EVA grips, double locking rod seat. So your reel will stay well in place. We're gonna have 8 models, 7 casting, and 1 spinning. And this is going to be at a lower retail cost than any rods we previously offered. They're going to be at that $189.99 price range. And so that way we can offer to a lot more people that can't afford to go to that that $210 or that $300 range for a rod, so everybody can enjoy getting a versatile rod in your hands. And the really cool thing about the Accura series is, so you can see on the rod here where it has the Autism Society logo. We are partnering with the Autism Society for these rods, and part of the proceeds for every single Accura rod that we sell, part of the proceeds are going to the Autism Society. All of us have had a lot of people in our lives affected by autism, whether knowing specifically the person who has autism or knowing someone who has a family member that struggles with autism. And so we wanted to do something with this series to really help out with that cause. And so part of the proceeds to every rod we sell will go to that cause.
Yeah, you're right. That's one of those things that you just about everybody knows somebody, or at least, know somebody that knows somebody who has autism in their family. A good friend of mine, a great guitar player, great singer songwriter that I used to play with, not too terribly long ago, his son has autism, and it became a full-time job.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot of responsibility to the parents that have a child, depending on the severity of the disease. But
Sure.
It's great to know that, when you purchase one of these rods, you're giving back to Autism Society. That's a good thing, man. I like that stuff. It just makes you feel good, makes you feel warm and tingly inside.
And then another thing I forgot to point out too, I don't know if you can see very well on the rod, but all the rods are painted this iridescent blue color.
Hold on, put that up.
Really good.
Let me solo you out there. Okay.
So it's just a really sexy, pretty looking rod. Orange guide thread, obviously, to tie in with the autism logo. And they're unsanded blanks as well. And so with an unsanded blank, it gives you superior and supreme durability in a rod. So
and it looks awesome too.
And it looks sweet. I mean, it looks really cool. Like these on a rod rack are going to look absolutely incredible.
You know what they look even better as your rod locker.
That's right.
Exactly. On the neck of the boat.
And someone's going to get this one. This is the only one in the world right now. And someone's going to win this one tonight.
Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's pretty special to get a rod 2 weeks before anybody else is going to get one.
Yeah, we really appreciate you doing that too.
Absolutely,
nice.
Guys.
That's
so
nice.
The new series will hit. What was the day again?
March 13th.
March 13th. Lucky number 13.
Yep, they'll hit on the Jewel website first, and then it'll take 2 or 3 weeks before they start hitting dealers.
And then what models are you going to have? You said you're going to have 8 models? 8
models, so 7 casting and 1 spinning. So I'll just run through them here.
Okay.
I've got them written down here so I don't screw nothing up. We got 610 medium heavy spinnerbait finesse jig rod, a 7-foot medium heavy all-purpose rod, a 7-foot heavy action Texas rig special rod, a 7-foot 1-inch medium moderate crankbait topwater rod, 7.3 medium heavy buzzbait vibrating jig rod, 7.3 heavy big worm rod, 7.6 heavy flip pitch, and then we're gonna have a 7.2 medium heavy all-purpose spinning rod.
Pretty much got it covered.
Got to cover the whole plethora of techniques out there.
Well, a lot of multi-purpose too in that.
Yes, exactly.
So you're not pigeonholing yourself, just like all the other rods that you guys have. You don't pigeonhole yourself with what it says on the blank, but it gives you a starting point.
It gives you definitely a good starting point of where you want to go with that. Like that 7.3 is a phenomenal buzzbait and vibrating jig rod, but I think you would love it, Gabe, for fishing a swim jig. I think you'd love it. If you love our swim jig, you'd love that rod.
Okay.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt.
Hey, I got to give a shout out to Ron.
Congratulations. Heck yeah.
They weighed in 1385 yesterday at Cedar, and that is 2 over 18 and 3 under 14. So we have a slot. Dang. So yeah, they had one right at 6 and then another
close. It had to be close to
5 or whatever, and then some really good unders. So Dell and Ron, congratulations, man. Always love it when anybody that's been on the channel, supports the channel, wins at the local lakes.
That's awesome.
And Ron, man, he worked hard. I talked to him multiple days. The
Well,
last couple
I
weeks,
kept
and he was out
last
there on
couple
the
weeks. I
water.
kept asking him, like, "Hey, give me a little something on Egypt where he lives at." I mean, when I say he lives there, he
2 minutes away.
Puts the truck in gear and rolls down the hill, and he's at the boat ramp.
At the boat ramp. That's the dream.
It is, and he's like, "Man, I haven't been there. I've been over at Cedar." It's like, I need just a little nugget. Help me out.
Exactly.
So
I feel lucky to live where I live. You know, I'm 30 minutes to Table Rock, 30 minutes to Bull Shoals, an hour to North Fork, an hour and a half to Beaver. You know, just so many Great Lakes right here, so close to our area.
Chris has got a great question here.
Yeah, this is a really good question.
It's the difference between rod action and rod power.
Such a great question. I'm glad you asked that, Chris. So the action of your rod is your tip. So fast, moderate action is going to depend on how much your rod tip bends. So this is a 610, medium heavy, fast action. So your fast action here is your tip. So that's how that tip bends and how that tip flexes. And your power then is the backbone. So this is a medium heavy 5 power is what this is. And so that's our backbone. So you've got a 5 power, medium heavy backbone. And so that's how you can kind of tell the difference between rod action and rod power, know what you're looking for. You know, for a spinnerbait, jig, you're going to want a fast action. You're not going to want, you know, a moderate, real limp tip like you would for a crankbait. You know, for a crankbait, it may be a 5 or a 6 power rod, but you really want that good moderate action and good moderate flex in the rod.
Okay.
I think one way it helps like my brain work is how fast it snaps back.
Yes.
Like how fast it comes back to center.
It comes back to center. So if it's a
Exactly.
fast or extra fast, it's going to
Come back to center real quick.
really, really quick. If it's a moderate, it's gonna
take that little bit of time to get back to center mass.
That's the rod builder perspective versus the guy that just uses them and has to put it in his brain somehow. So
yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it too. You know, your moderate seems, and I don't know if this is proper terminology or if this is true, but to me, like your moderate seems to bend deeper into the blank, you know, like halfway down the blank, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, your faster is
20
80 or something. I don't know.
The more moderate it is, the more down the blank it's going to bend.
Okay.
So it can be like a moderate fast. If it's a moderate fast, it's not going to bend very far, you know, down the blank. But if it's a true moderate, it's going to bend quite a bit farther down the blank.
Whereas an extra fast or fast is going to bend the first 12, 18 inches of the rod.
Exactly. That's
yeah,
right. Davey Rice is the man.
We had Matt Els on here. Oh, it was about a month and a half ago.
Matty.
And he won that super tournament at Lake of the Ozarks, throwing that Virtus rod. It was a wasn't it like a
stunner?
Yeah, so 610 stunner around docks. Now that's, to me, that is something that I'm not used to. I'm always thinking like a 7.3. But man, there's been a lot of people that throw that shorter rod around docks. I've been kind of hearing that lately.
If you want to skip a jig like skipping a rock, that 610 stunner is the deal. But not even just that. I skip a frog on it a lot. When Bull Shoals gets flooded and you really got to get a frog back deep in some places, I can take that 610 stunner and skip a frog super far back in some buckbrush.
Okay.
And you have spinning rods in all the lines as well, correct?
Yes, every single line we have spinning rods. 2 red diamonds, 1 blue diamond, and then 1 in the Accura series, and more spinning rods to come in the future.
Awesome. I'm running down through all the comments here. There's always these sub conversations that go on in our comments, which we love.
Yeah.
But
Crawford, my man.
Absolutely.
Crawford's a great dude.
I can't agree more with that, with the special ops
Let's come
series.
to that one about Falcon. That's a question. Somebody wanted me to ask that question.
How far back up was it?
Okay, well, so somebody asked me, they wanted to me to ask you about Falcon rods, and is there any connection with the plant that Virtus is made in? The Falcon rods connection. Is there any?
So here's what I want to preface before we get into any of this.
Okay.
Is we have zero and any affiliation whatsoever with Falcon and the Falcon rod brand.
Gotcha.
So this factory where we build rods, the old Falcon Caras were built in this factory back in the day, but Falcon chose to not continue manufacturing the Falcon rods in the U.S., and so they took all that production and everything overseas to China. So we have no way and no affiliation or anything with Falcon rods whatsoever. So the blanks and everything that we're doing for Virtus Jewel, they have nothing to do with Falcon whatsoever. They're our own custom textiles and materials that we've come up with and fashioned ourselves and made. We did a lot of that just because we are in the same building that, the Cara series was built in for Falcon. And we're so glad to have that history. We've got some great rod builders that have been here 35 years and beyond. And we're grateful for their knowledge and everything. But the technology and everything we're using today in our rods is far superior than what they were using in the past. And the designs are owned by Falcon as well.
I was going to say probably the mandrels that they took them with them when they left.
Yeah, they took everything with them when they left.
It's not like they can just give all that their proprietary information to you as well.
For sure. Yeah, we don't have anything to do with Falcon anymore and don't manufacture for them. Wish them all the best of luck and understand, why they left and did what they did, and wish them all the best. But we're here to build the best rods we can possibly build, and we think Virtus rods are the best rods on the planet.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you took that question on. Didn't mean to.
No, absolutely.
I've heard that a couple times, just in passing, and I'm like, I don't really know. So somebody had sent me a text, and what a better time, no better time to ask than when you're on the other end of the line.
Absolutely. We don't try to shy away from any of the tough questions. We try to be as open and as honest as we can be as a brand, both as a rod brand and as a jig brand and jewel. I mean, yes, there's some tough questions that are out there and some questions we wish we didn't have to answer or had to be asked, but we're not going to shy away from any of that stuff because we're proud of what we do, and we're going to treat everything we do with honor and respect, and we're going to treat our customers with honor and respect. So we're not going to do anything to lie or cheat or anything to our customer base. We want to treat y'all the best we can and get y'all the best product we possibly can.
I like that. Big Mike Fishing Chronicles is fishing his first BFL at Kerr Lake.
Nice.
Good luck, Mike. Good luck. It's fun, man. Just relax. Just let it happen.
Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show. And
enjoy the ride.
Ryan says, would the plopping rod be good for bigger scroungers offshore and swim baits and jig heads?
Absolutely. It'd be a really good rod for that. I know a lot of guys that are using it here on Table Rock, fishing like big 1 ounce jig heads on like a Scottsboro tackle swim bait and stuff like that, fishing, all that standing timber we've got on Table Rock. So absolutely, you could use it for that. It's a good A-rig rod too if you want to fish an A-rig with it. It's not just a great rod for plopping, although it is great for that. You can cast pretty much all the line off your reel with it. So I highly recommend having a big 200 size reel or bigger on it, because if not, you'll cast all the way down to your backing or your knot and not quite have the gear ratio you need to keep reeling that plopper as fast as you want.
I think that's the big thing I've noticed with not necessarily technique specific rods, but if you match the right rod with the right bait and the right line, how much difference that really makes.
Absolutely. Makes a huge difference.
You talk about casting the line off of off of your reel with the plopper. You can do that with a lot of baits out there, not just a plopper.
Exactly.
If you put the right combination together.
Exactly.
Stephanie has someone close to her.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Stephanie.
We love Stephanie. Stephanie's been on this stream almost since the beginning. She
That's
always
awesome.
shows up weekly.
We had a conspiracy theory going on about Stephanie for a while because she won 5 or 6 giveaways in a row.
Oh man,
I don't think she won 5 or 6. She won a couple. She was hot. She had the hot hand.
She had the hot hand. Let's just put it that way.
She may have ESPN or something to be able to read y'all's minds when you're picking out numbers.
Yeah,
I'd hate to see if anybody read my mind.
Oh gosh,
good Lord.
The good thing is that they
read my wife. I'm really not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about anything.
My mom would be mostly about fishing, so I guess I'm safe and in the clear.
They're talking about all that virtual reality stuff coming to where we can read each other's minds in the future.
Oh, that'd be a bad
People
day.
won't even talk. They'll just.
I can hardly deal with the technology that's come out in bass fishing, let alone stuff like that.
I hear you.
You got it all though, don't you?
Oh, I've got every bit of it. If you ain't scoping, you're hoping.
That's right.
I mean, it's the truth. Whether you like
especially
it or
down
not.
where you guys are at.
Do what?
Especially where you're at. I mean,
oh yeah, in this clear water. I mean, when they're out deep and they're chasing shad, it's the only way you're going to catch them. Now, I'm still a bank beater at heart, and I want to do everything I can to go get on the bank and go flip a jig, fish a spinnerbait, whatever. But there's just days here where the water's so clear where you can't do that.
Guys at home, share this stream if you don't mind. I'd like to get this up to 130. When we get 130, we're going to give that rod away.
Awesome.
We're really close. We're flirting with it right now. So C4 has a question. Yeah. He says he's heading down to Table Rock this weekend to fish a little derby. Where are these being sold down around Cumberland City?
So if you'll go to Branson West to Extreme Outdoors, that's a great location that's got the rods. Or if he's having to come through Springfield by any chance to head that way, if he's coming through Springfield, he can hit up BaitWrX. BaitWrX and Extreme Outdoors both carry our full lineup of rods.
Yeah, and if you're going to BaitWrX, you see the code down there in the ticker running across the screen. You can use the code THM10 and you'll get 10% off anything in BaitWrX. So
we didn't say the buzzword, guys.
We didn't make the reference to the hairy guy quite yet. Everybody's jumping the gun, man. Everybody's jumping.
They're getting excited. I don't blame them.
I would be too.
I'm kind of jealous. I can't throw my hat in the ringer.
Dale, you were really close. You were really close, Dale.
I think that's his zip code.
That's funny. So have you been out at bull shows recently, or
it's been a couple of weeks since the last time I've been on bull?
Okay.
Fishing's been a little slow, but everything I'm hearing, it's really picking up. And Table Rock's on fire right now. It's taking 18 to 22 pounds on the regular basis to win on Table Rock right now.
Yeah, I like Table Rock. I tell you what, I fished the Ozark division, the BFLs last year, and I also fished the LBL division. And over the weekend, they had the first Ozark division, the BFL at Table Rock, and it was hard to watch. I really missed being down there. I like that lake quite a bit. It's been good to me.
It's awesome. You know, bull's home to me. It's where I grew up fishing. It's where I cut my teeth. And so for me, any chance I get, I want to be on bull. But, man, there's something special about Table Rock.
Yeah, it's just everybody's guessing these numbers already.
We've been like 10 minutes worth of numbers. I didn't realize we were 10 minutes into numbers.
Golly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling.
That's kind of that deal where one person goes somewhere and then another person goes there.
Another person just follows.
Yes.
They're a good leader, I guess.
They were. I don't know who got that party started. We're going to do it all over here shortly, though.
Probably Dell.
It's probably
he's really stirring up trouble.
Yeah, it probably was Dell.
He's got to stir the pot.
Ants Creek. Ants Creek's a really popular spot there on Table Rock. I've fished in there several times. It's got everything you'd want in there.
Everything.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. A lot of people fish Ants Creek. I was in there one time, and gosh, I bet there were 60, 70 boats in Ants Creek.
Mm-hmm.
It was unreal. You could almost walk across the decks of the boats.
Mike, we haven't picked a winner.
Not yet, Mike. It's happening. It's going to happen here real shortly.
Coming soon.
South Jersey Fisherman 0. Oh, you got a question there?
I was just putting up that Jordan's the man.
Hey,
Colby's giving Jordan a big.
I think Colby's the man. Colby is one great dude.
Well, you talk about customer service. I know this is a big question that always comes up when folks are shopping for rods, but what's the warranty on you guys?
Absolutely. I was wondering when y'all are going to get to that question. So rod warranty is pretty simple. So all of our rods are backed by a limited lifetime warranty. So what that means is for the life of the rod, no matter what happens to it, you sit on it, you shut it in your rod locker, whatever, $100, and we'll give you a new rod.
He was poking at me when he said you sit on it because I
maybe just a little bit.
I broke my rod today.
Maybe just a little bit. Or at myself, I broke one about 6 months ago. I sat on it. So
yeah.
I've been there, done that. We all have. So just $100. Now we have for the first year that you buy the product. So you got to keep your receipt for the first year. We have a manufacturer's warranty that if there's any manufacturer's defect with the rod, we will send you a new rod. No questions asked, no hassle, nothing. But if the rod breaks for any other circumstances, for the life of the rod, you never rod 10 years from now and say, my red diamond finesse jig rod snapped because I shut it in my rod locker. $100 and you have a new rod. It's a lot better than spending $300 to have to buy a new one.
Yeah, and the fact that it doesn't have to break on a hook set or a fish or something, that's huge too.
Well, I tell you what,
we all make mistakes.
What I found is
I can't tell you how many rods I've broken in my life, and 98% of them, my fault.
Right.
If there is a manufacturer defect, that's usually going to rear its head in the first
couple of weeks,
30, 60, 90 days that you have that rod out.
Exactly. Yeah, for your regular fisherman that fishes, every weekend, within the first 2 to 3 trips, they'll know.
Yep, you're gonna set the hook on a 2.5 pounder, and it's just gonna.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that happens, right? I mean,
it does happen very rarely. Very rarely. Since I've been handling rod warranties, I can only think of 2, maybe 3 in total in the last year and a half that's been the case.
Right.
So, not saying it doesn't happen. It does, but it's very rare.
South Jersey says, does Virtus have any swim bait rods?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're talking about swim bait. If you're talking about glide bait, yes. We've got a 7'7" glide bait rod. So why 7'7" when most people have 7'10s or 8-footers? So we spent a lot of time playing with this rod. And for us, none of us really liked how insanely long the butt sections are on some of these swim bait rods. Some of them are just ungodly how long they are and just not comfortable. So we shortened the butt section of the rod. But the meat and potatoes of the rod, from the reel seat to the tip, is the same length as 99% of the swim bait rods on the market. So you still have that great rod length, that great action that you can cast and bomb a bait a mile. And it's still a longer handle than every other rod in our lineup. But it's not insanely long to where you're going to be uncomfortable fishing it all day. Like for me, while I'm fishing a swim bait, I like to tuck the butt of that rod just right in my shoulder and fish it that way because I feel like I just have tons of control with a glide bait while I'm doing that. But if you're wanting to fish like a Mad Draft or Scottsboro or swim baits like that, there's several rods in our lineup that can fit those hollow belly and soft body swim baits as well. Everything from a finesse jig rod for a Kitech to I love our 7'7" buzzbait buzz frog rod for fishing a weedless Mad Draft, and for the regular Mad Draft, I throw it on our 7.3 Ranger. So you got lots of options.
Sounds like a guy couldn't go wrong with that 7.3 Ranger getting 3 or 4 of those.
No, I'll tell you personally, I've got 4 of them in my boat. And almost always all 4 of them are on the front deck of my boat. It's pretty rare that they're not.
So how did how'd you get started working with Jewel?
Yeah, great question. So I started as Jewel Pro staff. So I was lucky enough through social media and different things to get noticed by Jewel, and got asked to do some video stuff for Jewel. And so that's how I started, was doing some video stuff, promoting them at shows and different things like that. And then in 2020, right before the Bassmaster Classic, Gail, the owner of Jewel, calls me and says, "Hey, you want to go to the Classic with Jewel and sell some baits?" I'm like, sure. So I take a week off from work and go with them to the Classic, and little we know the very next week that the whole world would shut down right after the Classic in Guntersville. But that was kind of my job interview, and I didn't know it. I mean, I had later had a formal job interview, but Gail later told me that that's when he knew that I was the guy for the job. So about 2 months later, I came in for an official interview, and Jewel hired me to be the head of marketing and customer service for the company. And then when we did this partnership and co-branding with Virtus Accura Rods, I took over the marketing and customer service for Virtus Accura Rods as well. So I've been with the company. I'll be with the company 3 years in May.
Awesome.
Yep.
Man, nothing like throwing you into the Classic to see how you're going to handle
exactly.
all that. That's great.
I was a nervous wreck, I can tell you, man.
I was at that Classic. So
were you?
Yeah.
That was a fun Classic.
What about Lake of the Ozarks area? Is there any dealerships down there that are?
So Brian Osage is a dealer for us at Lake of the Ozarks. They're a real good dealer up there for us, and we're always constantly looking to add more dealers as well. So we're always constantly looking to expand.
So where did you say that? Say
Brian Osage Outdoors.
Osage Outdoors. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, 27 pounds to win that jerkbait tournament on Palmy.
That's awesome.
It's pretty stout.
Palmy, I tell you what, man, I love that lake. Love it. I don't know if it's just because it fishes the way I like to fish or what the deal is, but I like it. But I always tear something up when I go up there. So it's kind of a love-hate relationship.
I don't think anybody fishes 5'6" rods anymore.
Maybe for bluegill or trout or
trout. Like I got an
trout
ultralight.
would probably be maybe, but we don't make any 5'6" rods.
I saw there was somebody, I don't remember who it was. Somebody launched a pistol grip a couple years ago.
Yeah, St. Croix.
Was it St. Croix?
Yeah, they built a specialty swim bait rod or whatever with a pistol grip.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up throwing a pistol grip. I think we all probably did.
Absolutely.
At some point. And I don't know how you understand that looking back, like we had Dion we've had him on a couple times, but how the old guys like that skip docks and that are so good and so efficient at skipping docks, and it's because their forearms are this big because that's what
absolutely.
They did. They just pitched with a pistol grip. My dad
look at the old
I cast two-handed on everything. Doesn't matter if it's a jerkbait or if it's a 2-ounce swim bait. I'm two-handing everything, and he'll one-hand everything.
Yep.
So
I can remember watching all those Eakins boys for years, and they'd always just one arm skip everything. And I'm like, gosh, I wish I could be that good and that accurate. But
yeah. What's up, Chris? Good to see you. Chris took me to the Collinsville show up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
He go up there with Doug with you? Okay.
Let's see. Scan down through some more of these questions. No, Brian, they don't make a glass rod for cranking.
They have a graphite moderate.
And I've thrown the
work crawler,
but the one I like is that
7.2
medium diver or the
diver? Yeah.
deep diver. That sucker's bad. I like that.
Thing's bad to the bone.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I like that. They're both good, but I prefer that little bit longer rod. You can make a little bit longer cast.
I'll give you a real quick Ozark trick. That 7.2 deep diver with the new deep diving wiggle wart is the freaking deal.
Yeah.
Because that thing digs and hunts so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that rod it's easy. Just loads up so well. it's a fun bite.
Ron's got a question. Do they find the spline before putting the eyes on the blanks?
So that's kind of a misnomer, the spline thing. So that really got started when YouTube got started, and everybody was watching and said you have to find the spline, you have to find the spline, you have to find the spline. That's where your guides have to be. Where really the best place to put the guides on the rod is the straightest and truest access point on that rod. And the reason for that is it makes your rod stronger, makes your rod more sensitive and more durable. So and most of the time that is the spline. I would say 95% of the time that ends up being the spline, but it isn't always.
Okay.
But that's a misnomer that's been out there for years. It's mostly home rod builders that really got that started and going. And it's truly not the case. We've been building rods here for 40 plus years, and not a single rod that we've ever built, or most factories that I know of in the U.S. have built, are they specifically going in and looking for the spline. They're specifically going in and looking for that center, perfect, truest, straightest access point, because that's going to be the strongest part of that rod, and it's going to allow that rod to be most sensitive, and it's going to allow for you to make the straightest and truest cast. So you put your guides on the spline, and there's a big curve in the rod. Whenever you cast, if that curve's to the right, every bait you cast, it's going to the right every single time, 100% of the time. Doesn't matter what you do. But if your guides are always on that center access point, then your bait's always going to travel true every time. And most of the time that is the spline. Like I said, 90+% of the time that is the case. But there are those cases where it may be off by a couple millimeters.
Okay.
But that's a great question.
Do you have a rod to handle 2 ounces? I would say that swim bait rod you're talking about.
Swim bait rod is rated for 1 to 4 ounces. Our A-rig rod is rated for, I believe, 2.5 or 3 ounces. And then our plopping and chopping rod's rated for 2.5 ounces.
Yeah, South Jersey's a big swim bait guy. I agree, man. Some of those handles are
they're ridiculous.
Well, even some of
they're just old school.
I have an older cranking rod, a long cranking rod that's all handle.
All handle, yeah.
It's a 8-foot rod, but it's, and you, like you said, you got to tuck it under here, and it's just awkward when you're throwing an 8XD or 10XD, a super deep diving crankbait.
Well, you get your ribs bruised up, and you're just uncomfortable.
Yep.
That's the last thing we want, someone using our rod to be uncomfortable using it.
Well, what I almost want to do is just take a chop saw and
chop it off
the last couple inches of that rod.
But the issue then is when you do that is it can be easy to lose the integrity of your rod and change everything about the action.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not going to do it. I just want to.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's great to build it right from the get go,
right,
and have exactly what you need.
Yep.
Keith got in the game early.
Yeah, Stream Swap Meet's a great place to go. It was just this last weekend, in fact. Nice. Had a lot of good stuff up there.
Here's a question from Brian. So we'll answer this question, and then we'll give away a BaitWrX gift card. Funniest thing to ever happen on the water. I guess we can all answer this, maybe. So you've been thinking.
I got mine already.
You already got yours? Why don't you go then?
Well, I don't know if it wasn't funny at the time, and there's proof of this, and I haven't released a YouTube video on it yet. But I was upset at the time, but looking back, it's absolutely hilarious. And I've showed you the video. But I was fishing with my son, and he wanted some bluegill, go bluegill fishing or crappie fishing. So we tried that for a while, and it wasn't working out. And I'm pretty impatient when it comes to bluegill or crappie fishing. If it doesn't happen quick, I'm done. But he wanted to bring the live well, which we have John boat. So my live well is a cooler. Well, I had been walking back and forth from front deck to back deck all day on top of my cooler, to turn on and off my camera every time that there's something that was happening.
Yeah.
Well, I did that, and I stepped that far in the wrong direction on that cooler, and it just goes and it flipped on me. And I hit the cooler. All 250 pounds of me lands on the cooler, on my ribs, bust the cooler all to hell. I'm cussing. I'm mad. And he's just looking at me like, "What's wrong, Daddy?" But there's a video of me. Whoop.
Oh, man. I've got two good ones for y'all. One really wasn't funny for me. But now looking back at the time, it's funny. So this first one I'll tell you is just from a few years ago. So I was fishing with my cousin. We were just going out fishing, messing around. And we see these birds flying around. And my cousin's like, I wonder if I can hit one of those with his A-rig. Because it's middle of winter, we're fishing an A-rig. And so he rears back and chucks that thing as hard as he can. Smokes me right in the back of the head.
Oh!
Puts my hat to the back of my head. Drops me to my knees. And I swear I was concussed because I was seeing stars. And it's like, yep, that's what we get for screwing around and trying to hit some birds with an A-rig.
That's called karma right there.
That's exactly what it's called.
I was fortunate the last time. Well, I wouldn't say the last time. The first time that I was hit in the head was in a college event with a 6XD.
Oh, God!
And I had a white hat on, and you could see the sexy shad colors on the hat.
Oh, man!
Never got a hook in me.
Gosh, that's
by the grace of God.
I thought you were going to say you could see the blood coming through the white hat. From
I
was in the getting the tackle out, and I had raised up, and my partner just overhand two-handed.
Well, you got to talk when you got to, like, anytime I'm fishing a BFL, if I'm in the back of the boat and I'm doing something, or when you're close, when you're within 10 feet.
Yeah, you got to give that talking.
Yep.
They're not paying attention to you. They're going to rear back and smoke you.
Exactly. What's your other one?
Yeah, and the second one, this was just from, I guess this has been 3 years ago. So me and my buddy Earl, we were fishing on bull, throwing a plopper in the fall. And I mean, we're smoking. We're tearing them up. And I catch one that's about that long, 10, 11 inch, little dink. And so I bow flip it in. I'm reaching down to get the plopper unhung. And, of course, the fish comes off. And the plopper comes up and skins me right in the nose. From the bridge of my nose down to here, the hook barb does. And luckily, it's just hitting the bridge of my nose, and the barb never goes in. But I'm bleeding like a stuck hog, and Earl's just in the back of the boat. I mean, just dying laughing. He's about to fall on the floor. He's laughing so hard. And he enjoyed it so much because we'd go back to work because Earl worked with us at that time at Jewel. And we would go to work, and he had to tell everybody in the whole entire building exactly what happened. He'd drag me around and be like, "You notice anything different about Jordan?" And it was like that for a solid 2 or 3 months.
Well, hold on. I got a follow-up question on your first story. How'd you get the hooks out?
So luckily, they weren't buried, deep in my head or anything. They were mainly buried in my hat.
Okay.
So that was good. I did have one that was in my head, but we just snipped the barb off, and it was good to go. But
gotcha.
It could have been way worse.
Gotcha. You don't have like an extra piercing back there that only comes out on the weekends?
No, not that I know of. He did about knock me out there, so I may have something up there still that I'm not aware of.
I tell you what, an A-rig hurts. That I've been hit in the back of the head a couple times with crankbaits, just wrong place, wrong time, and I almost got you with a frog.
Yeah, I learned that I have superior ninja skills. Jonathan set the hook on a frog, and it went flying about 125 miles an hour right towards my nose, and I just did one of these. And
awesome.
I got it on video. I slow-mo it, and it's a millisecond before it drilled me right between the eyes.
I've been unfortunately not so lucky, and I've been hooked way too many times.
So what's your good one?
Well, since we're talking about getting hooked by baits, one comes to mind. This is from the 9-9 Bass Club days, man, down on Duck Creek. It was during May, so there were some fish spawning on the cypress trees. Duck Creek's about 2,000 acres. It's a big rectangular lake that's shallow, flat, full of cypress trees, grass. It looks like you're in Florida. It's just a really unique body of water.
About 8 foot deep across the entire lake.
Yeah, there's a channel around the outside, but the middle of it is super shallow, just full of grass. But I was throwing on a spinning rod. I was throwing a floating Rapala, the old sides, black back, the 3-hook one. And I
grew up fishing that.
Yeah, and I was throwing it up against the cypress trees, and I was twitching it and just letting it sit. And those fish that were spawning would roll up on it. And some of them I would hook. Most of them I didn't get in the boat because it's a spinning rod and it happened so fast. But one of them I connected with, and it was like a 5-pounder. And that's a really good fish for Duck Creek. Anything over 3.5 pounds down there is pretty solid. There's a lot of 3.5 pounders. So I got this really good fish, and we're fishing for like $60, man, in the 9.9 club. It's a big deal, you know?
Right.
So I'm thinking about all the money I'm going to win if I can just get this fish in the boat. So spinning
But back
gear,
then, gas was only like $1 a gallon.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, bread was 17 cents.
Exactly.
Probably, yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Snickers bars though were probably 70 cents.
Oh man,
I can't believe how much price of candy bars has went up. You know, they're like $1.79.
I haven't looked at candy
Well,
bars.
don't look. It's
Okay.
crazy.
Yeah, don't look. It'll make you scream. It's
a ripoff. So I'm fighting this fish, and these are solo events most of the time. You know, it's a bass club, but we usually had more boaters than we had non-boaters. So you would draw an X, or a lot of times there's a couple guys that fish by themselves. I was fishing by myself that day. So I get this fish up by the boat. It's jumping, carrying on. I reach down. I'm super excited. This is, I think the fish I have in the live well is like a 2-pounder. So this is going to be a huge coal. Reach down and grab that fish. The wind's blowing. Seems like that. It's one of those lakes where it's super flat and you get a 5-mile-an-hour wind and it's like waves going over the
like in Florida.
Exactly. So you're always dealing with the wind down there. So I'm trying to lift this fish, stay out of the cypress trees, keep the trolling motor under control, and I'm totally multitasking. I'm probably chewing gum too while we're at it. So I grab this fish, get him in the boat, and he flops. And one of those hooks goes right in underneath my thumbnail and digs in.
My toe, look at that. My toes just.
Your toes did twist.
Anything under the fingernail gets me.
Yeah. So
that little shit shivers down my spine.
I'm by myself. The wind's blowing me into cypress trees. This fish is flopping. Every time that fish flops, and it's not a little dink. It's 5 pounds of flopping fish. So it's got some meat and some muscle behind it. And it's got some torque, some head shake, and it's just grinding underneath my thumbnail. And so I'm trying to keep the boat from going into the cypress trees. So I'm on the trolling motor, 1 foot, rod's down, and I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I'm like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm in a pickle. You know, I'm in a pickle. The pliers are
never close enough.
There.
Never close enough.
Never close enough. And I just end up ripping that freaking hook out of my hand. I can't remember exactly how I did it. I think I pushed the fish down or something, and I just did a Hail Mary, and I just yanked. And I ripped a big, huge chunk of meat out of my thumb. There was blood everywhere. I got the fish. Won the tournament. Put a Band-Aid on it. You know, I can't remember what I did. I don't know if I had an old T-shirt or something in the boat, but I remember it was bleeding like a stuck pig. But
man,
if you're ever pinned to a fish and the fish is flopping, that's the worst. It's one thing to be hooked with just the bait. It's another thing to be hooked with the bait.
Fish is on there
the bait, and it's just
doing all. I think we all got
further in.
Right? Like,
yeah, I don't know if that's funny, but that's just the story that comes to mind.
I tell you what, though, the MLF guys, when they were, which they still do, that where like fish can't touch the carpet, and that's like the recipe for disaster for me.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
I'm gonna bear hug that one with that crankbait in his mouth and try to keep my fingers away from it until he stops flopping.
Right.
I tell you how I'm going to get hooked really bad by myself is is when I swing a fish and I grab the line.
Yeah.
And I can't believe this has not
happened. And you
happened.
still have a little bow in your line.
Right. And the fish is flopping. One of these times that bait is going to come out and all that tension is going to send that bait into
because you're going to have the tension, the pressure on the rod that's going to add even more pressure. You got the pressure and pull, especially if you got fluorocarbon or something, you're doing it.
Yep. And I can't believe that's not happened.
Oh, man.
With an A-rig, with an A-rig, the fish is moving around. You got 5 hooks there.
That
fish comes I think about that a lot when
you're living right for that not to have happened yet.
Yeah, I agree. Lucky.
Ugh.
What's your best-selling Virtus rod?
Number one selling rod is either, I haven't looked here lately, but it's a toss-up between our wart crawler and our finesse jig. They kind of just keep going back and forth.
I think a lot of that has to do with where you guys are at, though, too, right?
Exactly, it does, for sure.
So,
yeah.
Lots of docks and lots of warts that crawl around.
Absolutely. Yeah, the widow wart and the rock crawler are both, two of some of the most dominant baits in this area of the country. And so, that naturally makes it a rod that sells really well. But I can tell you, man, that rod is a killer flat side and crankbait rod. Our pro staffer, Doug Chapin, is just smoking them on a flat side on Gunnersville right now. I mean, it's insane, catching 25-plus pound bags right and left.
That usually solves the problem. If you just catch 4 at a time on an A-rig.
Yeah.
I've seen Ron do that. I've been in the boat when he's done that. That was funny that day. I caught he doubled up, and I think he caught 4. I was going to say I caught 3, and then he caught 4. He like one up me, and that may have been how it went down. But,
well, he'd be the guy that's like, just leave it out there for a little bit longer. You'll hook 3 or 4 more.
Well, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. He showed me that. You hook up one, and he's down there flopping, and all those swim baits are doing this, and you just keep reeling it real slow, and that's the key. And spreading the wire, the arms out.
Yep.
Get those arms out there. What do you got down in Bull Shoals area as far as Sasquatch? You ever heard of any Sasquatch stories? Run across any Sasquatch?
Oh, man,
this could be for the BaitWrX gift card too, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few Sasquatch stories. I've been called that a few times myself, anyways. With this big old beard.
Yeah. You. I can see that. You look a little squatchy, slightly. That's one thing that you were talking about, people ribbing everybody down there, and when I was sitting around the round table with you guys, it seems like that's the kind of environment that if something happens to you, you never live it down.
Oh, you never live it down.
Yeah, they keep poking and poking and poking.
No, and it's great, good fun. I mean, we all just keep bringing up stuff all the time. I mean, we all work together, and when it's time to get down to business, we get real serious and everything. But man, we're all just friends and fishermen. We love hanging out, telling fishing stories as much as the next person. We'll sit around the table that I'm sitting at right now and tell fishing stories for hours. We're all truly, we're business partners, but at the end of the day, we're all really good friends. So it makes doing business a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, man, that is so nice to work at a place that you like to show up and everybody's having fun, getting along, and you're not bringing negative energy to the workroom floor.
What I tell people is 98% of the time I wake up in the morning looking forward to going to work. I mean, there's that 2% of the time where, you're just in a bad mood or whatever happens, and you're like, man, I don't want to go to work today. But 98% of the time, I wake up every morning looking forward to going to do what I get to do every day. I
say that. I say that to myself, but I'm just kind of faking it till I make it.
Make it.
Yeah. I mean, I like my job. Being a letter carrier is good. Best thing about my job is being outside. I have to go in. I'm inside for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But after that, I'm kind of out on the street and I'm managing myself, and I really enjoy it. We got a winner. Andy Leonard. What's up, brother?
Way to go.
Yeah. Send me your information again. And actually, Andy, send me your email, and I will get your email address over to Brian from BaitWrX, and he will get you a $25 voucher that you can go online, and you can use that code if you haven't ordered yet from BaitWrX. Use code THM10, and it'll get you 10% off. I think they have $50 free shipping. A lot of good stuff over there. So congratulations, man.
So I'm thinking there was something creative behind this, but where did the name for the new line come up? The Accura.
Yeah. So the new series Accura. So it stands for Accurate Performance and Precision Design. So one of the guys that we know, he's got a grandson who's severely autistic, and he was one to come up with some way to raise money for the Autism Foundation, raise money for this cause, and he kind of came up with the idea of maybe doing a rod brand. Well, to get in the business of doing a rod brand is a whole lot of work and a whole lot of money. And with all of us being friends and close with him, we said, what if we, made a rod series? Or at the time it was just one rod, and then it turned into a whole rod series. And we asked him, what would you call it? And he said Accura, because everything we make is accurate performance and precision design.
Gotcha.
Yep. So that's where it came from, and we're sticking with it.
Okay. I'm smiling because they're still pumping out numbers, and somebody
numbers like crazy.
He didn't say stop, so
stop.
Yeah, Andy won, so we're gonna give away the rod here in just a little bit.
Yep.
If you guys got any more rod questions, get them on here. We'll answer some more questions
for sure.
And, I gotta go to the bathroom, man. Can you
go for it?
Can you take over the reins for a little bit?
I think the Young Bucks can handle it, right?
Oh, we can handle it.
That's right.
We're about the same age, so I mean, we got this covered.
Absolutely.
You get all the old men out of the way.
So, we've talked about Virtus rods, which is always exciting because we've seen it. We both have seen this. What's new coming from Jewel?
Yeah. So I've got to keep some of it top secret.
Absolutely.
But definitely some more forward-facing sonar lures are coming very soon. We've been working on a lot of really cool projects here lately and developing some new baits. Dell's been helping us a lot on some of them, testing them out on bull for us. And we've got some really special forward-facing sonar baits that are going to be coming out in the future.
That scope spin's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of taking the market by storm.
So we've got a lot of them on here that already have their hands on a few.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's been selling like hotcakes.
Colby's got a question here. What all
scope spin?
Yeah, what all do you use the red diamond football jig for?
Yeah, so I use it for a lot of stuff. So obviously football jig, it's really great for that. It's the best Carolina rig rod I've ever used. If you're big into throwing a Carolina rig, it's a really good rod for that. I also really like it for wobble head, swing head, hard head, whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something different, but kind of that biffle hard head. I really like that rod for it. It loads up super well. And I even like it too. So I fish a 1 ounce spinnerbait a lot during the summertime here in real deep brush piles and around standing timber on Table Rock. And I just need that stiffer rod and I need that longer rod to make those longer casts. And so I'll opt for the football jig rod for those situations.
Gotcha. Let's do a couple rapid fire here. I know this is probably a tougher question, but we're going to address it. How similar are the Virtus actions to the original Caras?
Man, that's a really loaded question, but they're not similar at all. Just because the blanks are totally different.
Right. Keith has a question. Does the amount of guides on a rod change the action?
It can, yeah. I mean, if you put a lot of double foot guides on a rod, it's going to make that rod stronger. That's why swim bait rods are rated for heavier ounces than a rod that only has single foot guides on it. So that's more so than specifically the number of guides is really, single and double foot guides.
I think the more what I've learned, the more thread, the more points that you have of contact on that rod, will change the action of that rod,
Yes.
the power of that rod.
That's a good way to word it for sure.
Trenton says, what's the best rod for the scope spin?
Yeah.
So 7.9 heavy and not loving it.
Yeah, I would say you probably won't be loving it with a 7.9 heavy. So I throw it either on our 7.2 swim jig or our 7.2 deep diver, which both those are medium heavies. The swim jig's a fast action, but it's got some good tip to it, and the deep diver is more of a moderate action, crankbait style rod. The big thing you want to realize with that scope spin is, yes, you want to have a good length rod so you can really cast it and get it out there, and you want to have good backbone because you're setting the hook on fish that are 30, 40 feet deep or more. But you got to remember you're dealing with treble hooks here. So you've got to have plenty of give in that rod tip. And also what I try to advise people on too with the scope spin is when you're setting the hook on them, don't set the hook on them like you're jig fishing. If you do that, a lot of times you're going to rip the hooks out, or you're just going to have that back hook in their mouth. And that's going to give them a lot of leverage with that 1 ounce lure to really throw it. But what you want to do is lean into them, keep constant pressure on them. You don't have to work them super hard and super fast, and you can bring them in, and you'll hardly ever lose them that way.
It's shaped like a spinnerbait, but it doesn't fish like a spinnerbait.
It doesn't fish at all like a spinnerbait.
So
pull it up real quick. We got that still in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trent. I've been using the 7'2" swim jig rod for the scope spin, and
it's a really good rod for it.
Yeah, it works great. And you're right. You just kind of set like basically like a swim bait.
So yes, that's a really good analogy. Yeah, but I think really that key is not trying to horse them.
Scope spin should be. We're trying to find it here on the
Where's
website.
it? Where's it at on your?
There it is.
Keep going up. Yep, there you go.
Got the guy that designed the website, so he knows how to find the stuff a lot better than we do.
Occasionally.
So there's a scope spin.
Well,
it's made for scoping, live scope, but you don't have to use it for that.
No,
it's more
not at all.
It's like a drop bait kind of spoon. It's unique. I played around with it last fall.
I'll tell you the biggest fish that I ever caught on the scope spin. I had no live scope turned on. I had no graphs turned on. I was just out in the middle. I knew where I was, and I was off on this point. And I was just casting it out there and counting it down and ripping it. Kind of like you would a spoon. And caught one almost 5 pounds on it. So, you don't have to have live scope to use it. Obviously the name kind of hints at the live scoping because it's so hot right now, and it works really, really well with live scope, but it's not entirely necessary.
And Randy Blockett did a video not too long about it.
Yeah.
And he just fishes it kind of like burning it real fast on top of the water because it is 1 ounce, so it's going to sink.
And that technique works really, really well in the summertime. So it's a great follow-up bait for schooling fish. So if you're casting your top water out there on those schooling fish and you're working that top water and they're just not committing to it, you can take that scope spin and fire it out there to them and rip it through them and just get them real fired up and catch them like crazy.
Yeah, I bet there's a few Tennessee River guys that are going to be throwing a scope spin this year.
Yeah, it'll be a real big ledge fishing deal. Yeah, we've got some guys on Gunnersville that are already – they're trying to keep it secret, but it's not going to stay secret for much longer.
Well, any deep bait, it stays secret for about 2 days, and then somebody posts something on social media.
Yeah.
I was using Trenton's asking about the favorite line for scope spin. I was just throwing 15-pound fluorocarbon. That's what I was using.
Yeah. I throw as little as 10 if I'm really trying to fish that, that 90-plus foot deep. But I've gone all the way as big as 17. It's really just a matter of how fast you want the thing to fall and how deep you're fishing it.
I think that was the biggest thing that I learned when we were down there was 90 feet is a long way down there.
It's a long way down there.
Even for a 1 ounce bait,
For sure.
It takes a while to get there. when we were 25, 30 yards away from where we were wanting to be at, and Dell's like, drop. It's like, wait, they're up there. He's like, no, drop now.
Yep.
By the time it gets there, we'll be there.
Exactly.
So
Brian says different guides for braid on frog or flipping rods. Are they all the same across?
No, they're all the same. They're Fuji guides, and Fuji has really good inserts in their guides that work really great with mono, fluorocarbon, braid, all the above.
Oh man, I feel sorry for Frank.
Well, the way I look at it, Frank, there, you just get more practice on that FG knot.
Yeah, gosh.
You
got a lot more patience than I do.
So much more patience. I just thrown the rod down and been like, I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
What about a painted blade on the scope spin? Have you played around with that?
I've messed around with it a little bit.
Ah,
yep.
He was kind of hesitant about.
Yeah, he didn't like to say that, did he?
I didn't like saying it at all. I will not say yes or no that a painted chartreuse blade works really good on it.
Cannot confirm or deny.
Cannot confirm or deny.
Yeah, man, those painted blades. A lot of people forget about those.
They do.
Somebody just dropped a video on a painted blade spinnerbait.
Yeah, on that spinnerbait in that muddy water. There's something about it. And I have to give a shout out to RBT, who showed me the power of the painted blade. So
it works, man.
Like in 2015, I think it was 2016.
What? Hold on, it's right there. It's 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
I mean,
so
not to brag on yourself, but
there you go.
That trophy right there came on a painted blade.
Yeah, show it off.
Spinnerbaits. Yep, it's been a minute, but they still work, and I learned a lot about painted blades that day.
And I think what surprises a lot of people is it's not just a lot of people think dirty water for painted blades. Man, they work great in our clear water here.
Smallmouth love them too.
Well, they don't give off as much flash. It's not a spotlight down there hitting them.
Exactly.
So,
SEMO outdoorsman.
I'll give one other scope spin tip. You can replace that back treble if you're getting a lot of short strikes with a feather treble, and it'll prevent a lot of your short strikes.
Good stuff. I think Darius mentioned that a couple streams ago about the feather treble. I'm pretty sure. Yep,
it does really good. It just seems like that feather just draws them in even more and makes them commit sometimes when they're being finicky.
SEMO outdoorsman. My favorite line has always been Sunline. I just like Sunline, but I fish a lot of Seagar as well.
Yeah.
For braid though.
Is it
brand? Oh,
it's brand. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've been playing around with this basics. We talked about it on the last stream, but this basics 101, and it's okay. Last week I was kind of raving about it. This week I've had it out. I fished with it a little bit more, and I don't think it's got the longevity. I think the nice thing is it's $9.99.
That's nice.
But the downside is I don't think it lasts as long as the InvisX.
Right.
So you're a tournament guy, and you have a rod that you want to put 10-pound fluorocarbon on for the weekend.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be great for something like that because you don't mind to strip that off on Sunday when you get back to go fish Monday with that rod with 15-pound or 12-pound, whatever you're going to throw on that rod.
I'm thinking the red label of the cheaper line of the lesser priced line, I should say. I think the red label might be a little bit better than the basics.
Yeah,
but
red label's not bad. I mean, it's not InvisX by any stretch of imagination, but it's not bad. InvisX is why I use 90% of the time for fluorocarbon. I mess around with some of BrazeX some, but the InvisX is just at a little bit more affordable price range than what BrazeX is.
Day in and day out, I'm InvisX as well. Yep. And then when it comes to braid, I'm a Power Pro.
I am too. Power Pro just gets the job done, and you can find it anywhere.
Yep.
Well, and so for Power Pro, for me, for spinning setups, I like the slick.
Yeah.
But for casting, I do not like the slick.
No, I'm the same way.
So I like the I don't know what it's called. It's just the standard Power Pro, not the slick.
The Spectra is the slick, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
but the other one, it doesn't dig as much into your reel.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's real. That Spectra is real good on a spinning reel, but I don't like it at all on a bait caster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the thing you'll notice about fluorocarbon is the longevity of the higher end. You know, when you buy like a FC Sniper from Sunline or you buy the Invis X, yeah, it's $23 to $26 a spool, but it's going to last you 3 times as long probably. I mean, I run high mileage on my line. I mean, I get every bit out of them, and I can really tell a difference in a $26 spool of fluorocarbon versus a $10 or $12.
I don't want to admit this, but I got line from last year still on my stuff.
I still do too.
Well, I try to advise people too all the time if they can afford it. You know, some people can't afford it, but if you can afford it, get a 1,000-yard spool. If you can afford it,
I do that every single time, and it saves you money.
It does. You do the cost breakdown of a 200-yard spool to a 1,000-yard spool.
Not even that. How many 200-yard spools do you have with 20 yards of line on them?
Exactly.
Because 20 yards of line doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
And that's like Carolina rig leader line that you never use.
Exactly. Right. But the 20 yards that I left on that 1,000-yard spool, I didn't have that 5 times over.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that makes sense. Darius has a question. How come no split rings on the scope spin? He says he puts them on his.
So that's an option you can put on yours. So the whole reason we didn't put them is because we wanted the hooks orientated to a specific angle to help you hook more fish. So if you look, the front hook hanger, when it's up against the belly of the bait, it's got one barb always pointed down. And on the back hook hanger, it always has one barb pointed up. The reason for that is when you're pumping that bait, you can catch them underneath the chin sometimes when they're coming down on it or when they're short striking it, or you can hook them in the roof of the mouth a little bit easier with that back hook. Is the whole purpose we did it. You can put split rings on it. It's fine, but we really didn't find any advantage or disadvantage to having split rings or not having split rings on it.
That's talking about a well thought out design there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, wasn't something years of testing. That wasn't created overnight.
No, years of testing, and we never found any reason why you had to have them. Now, there's certain reasons why you might want to change the hooks to a bigger hook. You know, I know some guys on Gunnersville that are ripping it out of the grass and they're upping it to number 4 EWGs. Yeah, you definitely want to do it for that. But, you know, you don't have to have split rings on it one way or another. But if you feel comfortable with that, then that's awesome.
Trenton asks, is anything in the works for a heavier one?
Not right now. That may be something that we eventually cross that bridge, but not right now.
Yep, Simo, that's it's the yellow box.
Super Slick 8, is that what they call it?
Super Slick 8 is the Power Pro that slick stuff that is really good for spinning setups.
I'll tell you, Crawford Brantley has a question there about cork sealer. I've used cork sealer a long time ago, but I tell you what, it actually saved one of my rods when the day that we were fishing over there at Peabody, at River King.
Yeah.
When that Asian carp jumped in the boat. I don't know if you guys seen this video, but me and my man JB were idling through this little cut in the strip pits, and it's full of Asian carp. And this Asian carp jumps in the boat, and you were about ready to jump out of the boat. But when it came in the boat, its tail flicked one of my rods out of the boat. And so we got done, playing around with this thing. I grabbed it and threw it back in. And so I started counting my rods, and there was one that was gone. So I'm freaking out. Turn around and we start backtracking, and the rod is floating on top of the water, and it was an old rod, and it had old cork. And I didn't realize this, but Ron said the reason that rod didn't sink, even though it was cork, was because it was old cork, and it was more porous, and it had more air built up inside of the cork. So that is one good thing about old cork, is it will float your rod. If it ever goes overboard, you have a better shot of finding it.
What amazed me about that rod, though, it was floating. It was floating right on top, perfectly level. You saw all 7 foot,
and it probably had a bunch of oil
think about your handle and all the oil and stuff in your hands over years and years of use.
Right.
Probably baked inside of that cork too. So it had several things working for it. Bottom line is, don't let an Asian carp in your boat if you
ever. Yeah.
You know, the crazy part is we fished for like 3 hours that day and never had an Asian carp encounter. And then we got talking about it. It's like, you know, how close the river was, and does the river ever get in here? And he's like, yeah, there's Asian carp in here. I'd never been there. And then all of a sudden, like, all hell breaks loose for the next hour.
We started seeing them jump, you know. Oh, we saw like 6 or 7 jump, God. And then the one just came right in the boat right there at the end of the day. So no Sasquatch sightings or anything down there, huh?
No.
Actually, Cody Huff. We had Cody Huff on here a while back.
Oh gosh, that little
he's got a very interesting. Ask him about that next time you see him. Ask him about his Sasquatch story. He said he was coming back from a night tournament, and it was late in the morning, and he saw some big, dark, hairy object step over the guardrail of the highway and go down into the woods. And he said the hair just stood up on the back of his neck.
Oh, man.
And I said, did you stop and kind of shine a flashlight? And he said, heck no, I was out of there.
He got the heck out of there.
He went straight to the house. So there's a Squatch running around those hills somewhere.
I believe it. If it's anywhere, it's in the Ozark Mountains, man.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Or in the Northwest.
Maybe.
There's just so much uncharted up there.
That's true. But there's so much in the Ozark Mountains that you could hide out for years in the Ozark Mountains and nobody'd find you.
Well, we found a cave when I was with Dell. We found an actual Sasquatch cave. I've got it on video. It just looked like a place. You could see the cave, and then you could see a little trail where he came down and he cleaned his fish or whatever he caught the night before, his deer. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a Sasquatch family lived in that area.
Yep.
So it's out there for sure.
There.
We got a winner.
We got a winner.
Yeah.
We have got a winner.
Well,
let me write that down. You got it?
Yep.
CHAENTZ. So how do you say that?
Not sure.
Chance.
Yep.
We're going with Chance. Get a hold of me.
This is your rod.
6'10", medium heavy.
6'10", medium heavy. Spinnerbait, finesse jig.
Sweet.
It's all yours.
That is perfect. I mean, that covers a lot of good stuff. Yeah, congratulations. Get a hold of me. Hit me up on Facebook, Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, or 10 Horse Monty 6 on Instagram. Send me all your information, and I'll get that information over to Jordan.
Yep.
So yeah, congratulations. That's huge, man.
Absolutely.
That's huge. That's a good multi-purpose rod too. You can do a lot of stuff with that.
You can do a lot of stuff with it.
Right,
probably the most versatile rod in the Accura series lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you can throw the finesse jigs, but you can throw a shaky head and spinnerbait and stuff on it. Do a little bit of everything with it.
Absolutely. And one sweet rod and look on your front deck.
He's local too.
Nice.
So
nice. Cool. Yeah.
It's you know, you see everybody's YouTube handles and you don't know who you may know them very well, but you don't know who they are.
You know who they are.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Somebody said, what was your PB on the scope spin? It was like probably a 5-pounder. Is that the story you just told?
Yeah, it was a 5. I mean, I didn't weigh it. It was either just shy of 5 or it was a 5.
Okay. Nick's out. Nick, thanks for hanging in. Say good night, ladies and gentlemen. It was a fun show. I'm getting old and got to be up at 4. Man, thanks for hanging out with us this day.
It's been.
I've been gone a long time ago.
Heck yeah.
Everybody was sticking around for that rod.
I don't blame them.
I was sticking around too for it. I didn't win though. So
yeah.
Yeah, Brad, the swim jig rod is yeah.
Both those rods, you can't go wrong with either one of them.
You can do, like I said earlier, you can do you can do your swim jig, it's excellent chatterbait, excellent swim jig, excellent spinnerbait rod. You can throw jigs on it, and you can definitely throw a Texas rig.
Absolutely.
So you could probably throw a trap on it too, I'm thinking.
You could for sure.
And then the scope spin, of course, we talked about that. So not only the scope spin, like a flutter spoon, if you want a shorter rod for like a flutter spoon out.
Yeah, you want a shorter rod for that. Yeah.
So it's another multi-purpose rod, and it's so sensitive. You're gonna have to learn how to fish it if you get one. For sure.
Once you do it though, you'll be hooked for life.
Yeah, you will. It's kind of like like you said, test driving a Corvette. Don't test drive a Corvette if you don't want to buy it.
Full rotten.
You'll definitely want one. I've told Jonathan this a bunch of times, and we just talked about it earlier. But when a rod is real sensitive, you have to learn how to fish it because it's amplifying that bite, and you're gonna miss some fish on it until you figure it out. But once you figure it out, you're gonna be happy you got it.
Yeah, I'd say more of a jigging spoon rather than a flutter spoon on that swim jig rod. I know we said flutter spoon, but that'd probably be a little big for.
Depending on the size of flutter spoon.
Yeah, I mean, some of those 3.5, 4-inch flutter spoons you could do.
Right. That's kind of what I was talking about, like the Lake Fork flutter spoon, which is
or like Jet makes one that's not that big. That it's
not a hubcap.
Ice cream scoop.
Yeah, the hubcap, right?
So,
well, man, I guess we'll wrap this up. We've been on here for quite a while. We covered a lot of ground. There's a lot of good information in this. It's good hanging out with you, man.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me on.
Anything else? Any closing comments or stuff before we wrap it up?
There was two of us that took.
Ron.
That was the
Ron's a spoon junkie. Someone say spoon. All of a sudden he wakes up. Someone says spoon. He comes to life.
Comes to life.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you want to touch on before we wrap her up?
No, man. Just be keeping your eyes peeled for launch of the Accura series. March 13th is when we're going to launch them. Follow Jewel Bait and Virtus social media, both on Facebook and on Instagram for that launch. And we'll have some more cool stuff in the coming months ahead. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to have some new rods that we're going to add to both the Blue Diamond and Red Diamond series this year. So just keep your eyes peeled for more new and exciting stuff coming up. And if you have a dealer in your area that you're wishing would carry the rods, mention it to them, send them our way. We'd love to get them set up as a dealer to handle Virtus jewel rods.
The dealer up in O'Fallon,
Alton.
Up in Illinois?
Yeah.
Yep, Bluff City Outdoors.
Bluff City, that's right.
He's. I just talked to Mike today, and he's going to be getting a hold of you soon. He's been busy, but he's definitely wanting to get the Virtus line.
When I was over at the Marion show, I had the Virtus hoodie on, and he's like, "Tell me everything you know."
Yeah.
He goes, "Are they good?" I was like, "They're awesome, man.
They're good people up there."
Yeah,
they are. They are good folks.
So,
and I may have a discount code, right? Is that still a possibility?
You got a discount code.
Okay, so.
Yep.
Yeah. So look, I'll start sharing that discount code soon, and it'll be good. 10% off.
10% off any rod in our lineup.
Yeah. So that'll save you some good money there.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We do this every Monday night at 7:30. It's been a good evening, and we'll see you next week. Jordan, thanks a lot, man. It's good hanging out with you.
Good.
Good. Shut her down.
See you guys.
See y'all.